Obito rewrites Naruto, duel Kamui to save Rin. Welcome funds. Enjoy exclusive audiobook experiences right here. Check out my website for more episodes and audiobooks. Links are in the description. Episode 1 Obito's Rebirth, starting with 2 Kamui. If possible, Obito even hoped to help Madara out of his misery. Although Madara killed Rin and led him astray, Obito had now become one of the good guys. In this world, being a good person is incredibly difficult. Naruto's survival of his former self is simply a matter of luck. Obito couldn't help but shake his head. He then calmed down and began to analyze the current situation. The timing of his rebirth was actually quite special. Now, the Second Shinobi World War has ended. Kakashi's father, Tsukumo Hatake, the White Fang of Konoha, did not die on the battlefield but took his own life. Kakashi suffered a blow and became depressed. Today, in order to prove himself, he applied to graduate from the Ninja Academy early. In his past life, he would also have been broken down by this incident. At that time, he was actually very insecure, afraid of not being able to keep up with Kakashi and losing his best friend. He feared even more that Rin would follow Kakashi and disappear from his world. So, to escape reality, he ran away. Until Lin came to find him. It was Lin's comfort and encouragement that helped him pull himself together. It was at that time that Lin made the promise, "I will always be watching over you." Because of this promise, Lin waited for him for a long time on the road to the underworld. History seemed to have become a cycle, and he was reborn at this juncture. After seeing Lin in the underworld, he suddenly realized his place in Lin's heart. The bond between him and Lin wasn't fragile. In fact, one could say that even if he abandoned the whole world, Lin never abandoned him. Lin cared for him more than the whole world combined. Therefore, even if Kakashi became the sun in the sky, he still couldn't take Rin away from him. And the future proved that he, Uchiha Obito, was the true genius. Kakashi is a complete waste. After all these years, he still hasn't improved. Therefore, we should get that good for nothing back now. Otherwise, given the scale of the Fourth Shinobi World War, Kakashi won't even be qualified to meet Kagaya. Judging by the time, Rin should be coming to find me soon. I'll meet up with Rin first, and then I'll go find Kakashi. Thinking this, Obito activated Kamui again and returned to reality. Because the war had just ended, Konoha village was still filled with a somber atmosphere. Fortunately, this has not affected the children yet. On the training grounds surrounding the Ninja Academy, 5 boys and girls gathered together, enjoying their lunch break with innocent smiles on their faces. Although the will of fire, passed down from the first Hokage Hashirama Senju, has been distorted by the Konoha leadership, it is still the foundation of the village, and its core principles must be followed by future generations. Compared to the Warring States period when 4 or 5-year-old children had to go to the battlefield, the children in Konoha were indeed more fortunate. Obito appeared beside one of the few large trees in the training ground, hiding his figure in the shadows and quietly watching this scene. This is a habit he has developed over many years. Having infiltrated Konoha multiple times in his previous life, returning to Konoha felt like coming home. He knew exactly where to hide and where the sensory barrier wouldn't detect him. Perhaps even the members of the barrier squad and the reconnaissance squad don't understand the entire layout of Konoha as well as he does. The main reason for appearing here is that there are a large number of white Zetsu lurking in Konoha village, all of whom are Madara's eyes and ears. It's best to avoid them if possible, as discovering their special abilities would be a big problem. Although he's not very afraid of spots now, he's just an old man nearing the end of his life. If he wanted to, he could risk losing his eyesight and his body falling apart, using Kamui to teleport there and fight Madara. I doubt Ban can beat him, but he was afraid of implicating those around him. Saving is much harder than destroying. With a reckless personality like Naruto Uzumaki, if he's unlucky, he might not only fail to save the world, but also end up like his past self. He wasn't going to gamble with luck right now. However, unlike his previous life, he is no longer a ghost walking in the ninja world. He has a legitimate and legal identity and doesn't need to hide in the shadows all the time. With that thought in mind, he stepped out of the shadows. In the afternoon in Konoha village, the sun shone brightly, and he basked in its warmth, feeling a long-lost sense of comfort. I haven't felt this way since I fell into darkness. Just then, a little girl with purple face paint walked into the training field, seemingly looking around, searching for someone. The girl was both anxious and excited. Her bright, lively eyes blinked rapidly across her small face. Obito's gaze immediately fell upon her. He hadn't seen Lin so vibrant and alive for a very, very long time. A very, very long time. Her existence makes this world shine, and is the reason why the world has never become hell. Obito couldn't help but shed tears. He longed to go over and give Rin a big hug. He desperately needed Lin's warmth to melt away the gloom that had accumulated in his heart over the years. But it wasn't until this moment that he realized that after all these years, he was still the same. He could stand up to the whole world for Lin, but he didn't dare to reveal his feelings to her. He froze on the spot, hesitant and anxious, wanting to take action, but ultimately doing nothing. Seemingly sensing Obito's burning gaze, Rin turned her head to look. The girl immediately fixed her gaze on him, and upon noticing his tears, the joy on her face faded considerably, and she ran over with concern. Obito, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Lin raised her little hand and wiped away his tears. Obito sniffed and then gave a big smile. It's nothing, just a little bit of weathering. As soon as Obito finished speaking, Rin hugged him. Lin hugged him tightly, as if she wanted to bear some of his pain. Obito, you really can't lie. No matter what happens, I'll be by your side. If you want to cry, just cry it out. Rin didn't know what Obito had gone through, but she sensed that Obito needed her embrace and her warmth. Obito's tears, which he had managed to hold back, flowed again. At this moment, he was no longer the mastermind behind the ninja world, but just a little boy who had lost something he cherished for a long time and then regained it. He hugged Lin and cried loudly, like a child. He wanted to cry out all the pent-up emotions, pain, and grievances he had accumulated over the years. It took him a long time to stop crying. Lin's shoulder was soaked with his tears. He released Lin somewhat shyly, saying, I'm sorry, Lin, we just met, and you witnessed such an embarrassing scene. Lin shook her head before he could finish speaking. Obito, can you tell me what happened? Despite its gentle tone, there was an undeniable air of authority in it. Lin felt so many emotions in that hug. The despair and oppression nearly crushed her, while the obsession and love nearly melted her away. If they hadn't just met that morning, she would have almost thought that Obito and she had been separated for many years before, finally reuniting. So she really wanted to know what Obito had gone through in that short afternoon. Episode 3, the Konoha's worst student is actually the strongest. Rin was actually wrong. Obito was a very good liar. He fooled many people. Itachi Uchiha, Sasuke Uchiha, the Kage of various villages, Nagato, Canon, and so on. Even his teacher, Minato Namikaze, didn't recognize him. But Rin wasn't wrong. Obito wouldn't lie to her. Even something as simple as being reborn wasn't something Obito wanted to hide from Rin. He smiled and said, Lin, I'll tell you everything, but it's a very, very long story, too long to tell in a short time. Let's find some time to tell it slowly, okay? Lin felt relieved and gave a heavy, Obito smiled, took Rin's hand, and headed towards the school building. Now, let's go find Kakashi first. That good for nothing. Cough cough, he's actually a genius, graduating at 5. I wonder if there's ever been a precedent like that at the Ninja Academy? Rin was led by Obito, turning her head to look at this boy who, in her memory, was somewhat insecure yet enthusiastic and lively. She sensed that Obito was different from before. Not only were his eyes much sharper, but he had also become more domineering. Rin's face flushed slightly. She didn't really resist this feeling. On the contrary, she could feel Obito's desire to protect her and gave her a strong sense of security. But, Lin asked curiously, Obito, how did you know Kakashi was graduating? I just got the news and came to find you immediately. Obito chuckled, it's also included in what I'm about to tell you, but let's keep it a secret for now. Anyway, let's find Kakashi first. We can't hide it from him anyway. To save time, I'll tell you all at once. Instantly, the worry between Lin's brows vanished. Obito, you clearly care about Kakashi too, yet you're still so dishonest. Obito immediately felt embarrassed. Who would care about him? He's just an afterthought. Lin nodded, covered her mouth with her other small hand, and chuckled. Okay, let's just consider it a side effect. Let's hurry, we don't have much time. And so, the two quickened their pace and arrived at the teaching building. At this moment, the entrance of the teaching building was crowded with people, most of whom were students from Class A of the first year. Obito glanced around and immediately recognized many familiar faces. Might Guy, Kurenai Yuhi, Asuma Sarutobi, Shizune Kato, Hayate Gecko, Genma Shiranui, Yugo Azuki, Ebisu. Oh, and 2 gatekeepers too. As for why most of the visitors were from Class 1A, it wasn't because Kakashi was in their class that students from other classes didn't want to come and visit. Just kidding. Graduating from the Ninja Academy at the age of 5 is something that might not happen even once in a lifetime, and even most of the villagers in Konoha are eager to join in the fun. However, the other classes are different from theirs. Most of the students in those classes come from ordinary families and don't have many parents who hold high positions in Konoha. They lack the necessary information and have no idea what is happening in the school building. Today, the common people are undoubtedly tragic. The tragedy lies in the fact that they can only drift with the tide, and even if they become ninjas, they may be used as cannon fodder and die in the war. Or, even if you're just staying peacefully in the village, you might be caught in the crossfire of a powerful attack and die on the spot. This is true even in the most peaceful village of Konoha. However, ordinary people also have their happy aspects. They are not troubled by knowing too much and can live relatively carefree lives. Unlike their class, where even this highly confidential information was widely known, making people realize more deeply that the gap between people is greater than the gap between people and dogs. In his previous life, Obito knew nothing, but now he was very clear that their class was special, being the elite class of this year. Not only were the children of various bloodline families and secret technique families gathered there, but even the son of the Anbu captain commander and the Hokage's son were among them. However, even in the elite class, the most successful ones in the end, besides the genius Kakashi, were actually him and Might Guy, the two worst performers. He didn't need to be mentioned. He became the second sage of 6 paths, almost surpassing all living beings and single-handedly confronting the entire world. Guy is ridiculously strong. Not only did he repeatedly thwart Kakashi and Naruto's plans and directly confront the tailed beasts, but he also kicked half of Madara's body to pieces. By then, Madara had become the 10 Tails Jinchuriki, capable of creating and destroying the world with a mere gesture. Obito had also entered the 6 paths state and understood perfectly well that all beings below the 6 paths were mere ants. Even the former god of shinobi, Hashirama Senju, was nothing more than a slightly larger ant in his eyes. But Kai managed to challenge a god with a mortal body, even if the price was high. The damage he inflicted on Madara was real. It's said that Guy's move was originally intended for Kakashi. I wonder what Kakashi was thinking at the time. Speaking of which, Naruto was also a loser, and Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin and Minato's teacher, was also a loser in his childhood. Does this mean that losers are the strongest? Thinking about this, Obito couldn't help but laugh. Obito, what happy thing have you thought of? You can't help but pout. Lin turned her head and asked with some curiosity. Obito suddenly felt like teasing Rin, so he whispered, Rin, who do you think will be the most successful in our class in the future, excluding Kakashi? Of course? Rin smiled and said, of course it's you, Obito. You're the future Hokage. Obito's heart sank slightly. Hokage? Impossible. Never in this lifetime. Lin, just tell me what's on your mind. I don't need comforting right now. Rin was a little angry, and said huffing, I wasn't trying to comfort you. I genuinely believe that Obito, you can do anything in the future. Obito's heart is warm. It turns out that Rin had trusted him so much since they were children. He was even a little confused about whether his childhood dream was to become Hokage or to gain everyone's approval, especially Rin's. He continued, and besides me? Lin hesitated for a moment, glancing at the other classmates before thinking for a while. Maybe it's Kai, after all, he's Kakashi's lifelong rival. Okay, this is really boring. Obito was surprised that Rin could guess so accurately. Seeing this, Lin was very pleased with herself. Is that really what Obito thinks? Obito nodded. There was no need to think about it. This was simply the truth. Just as the two were chatting, the doors of the teaching building suddenly opened. The group, who were still whispering, immediately looked towards the gate. For a moment, there was complete silence. In reality, this exam was more of a formality, since not everyone is qualified to submit a graduation application. Most of the students present understood this, but when the moment of truth arrived, they couldn't help feeling nervous. Only Obito remained completely unmoved. Today, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, is the chief examiner. Given his indecisive nature, would he be willing to come without absolute certainty? Episode 4 Obito couldn't resist switching to his deceptive mode. In Obito's view, this graduation exam was nothing but a show. Hiruzen Sarutobi needs a compelling topic to deflect the negative impact of Tsukumo Hataki's death. Furthermore, with Konoha losing a top-tier fighter, various factions are stirring, and war may be imminent. Without creating a role model, how can we motivate so many Ninja Academy students to work harder, graduate early, and become cannon fodder on the battlefield? Haha, that's quite a clever scheme. Obito couldn't help but sneer. Thinking back to his past life, he worked hard to graduate early, barely managing to use his clone technique in front of the examiners, thinking that this level wouldn't be enough to pass the test, and he was very frustrated. As soon as he left, the teacher immediately brought him a ninja headband. He thought his efforts had finally paid off, and he was so excited he almost jumped for joy. But actually, it was because the Third Shinobi World War was getting more and more intense, and they, the new sprouts of Konoha, needed to sacrifice themselves. Sigh, he was so stupid when he was little. Just as he was reminiscing, Kakashi walked out of the school building, his small body adorned with a bright headband. That's amazing. Yes, that's really amazing. I swear, I'm graduating early too. That's so cool. All the students' eyes lit up, even those from powerful clans. Children from wealthy families may be well off and have handled all sorts of ninja tools since childhood, but ninja headbands are different. They are standard equipment and cannot be worn openly by those not officially registered. Things are valued for their rarity. Nowadays, anyone who can get their hands on a headband and wear it openly will be incredibly proud of themselves among their friends. Even Obito, looking at Kakashi's arrogant demeanor, couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Rin was the happiest among them. She stepped forward and smiled at Kakashi. Did you pass? Congratulations. However, Kakashi simply gave a lazy, ah. Obito was so furious at their dismissive attitude that he couldn't help but grit his teeth in hatred. Obito could understand Kakashi's feelings at that moment. Even if your father is dead, you shouldn't treat Rin like this. Isn't Rin good enough to you, Kakashi? So good that he's often jealous. Obito really wanted to punch Kakashi and make him rethink his words to Rin. However, Kakashi seemed to have misunderstood Obito's angry and frantic expression. Kakashi's mood suddenly improved a lot. Even the gloom on his face dissipated considerably, and he couldn't help but tease her. What, Obito, aren't you going to congratulate me? Obito snorted coldly. Kakashi was definitely trying to provoke him on purpose. He had fallen for that trick in his past life. This time, it was his turn to fight back. Kakashi, you think you're so great for becoming a genin at 5? In my opinion, you're a complete idiot. Kakashi was taken aback. In his mind, shouldn't Obito be furious, red-faced, utter some harsh words, and then run away without looking back? Then Rin chased after him relentlessly, and tried her best to comfort him? As a true supporter of Rin, Kakashi thought this was fine. But now, why is Obito stealing his lines? Who's the idiot? So he wasn't going to back down either. You idiot Obito, you don't understand anything, so just stay here until graduation. Seeing this, Obito wasn't angry. He simply couldn't resist using his most proficient deception mode. In his past life, he had fooled many people, and countless geniuses had been completely misled by him. He hadn't tried it on Kakashi yet, so this was a good opportunity to give it a try. So, he faced Kakashi and adopted a shrewd and calculating demeanor, even though he was only 5 years old and still a little kid. This demeanor was somewhat comical. Kakashi, do you think I'm joking with you? Let me analyze it for you. Obito extended one finger. First, after graduation, you'll be doing a lot of low-level tasks. You're still growing, and you should be exercising. Doing tasks will waste time and may not even provide good exercise. Obito extended another finger. Secondly, after experiencing numerous low-level missions, you're finally ready for high-level missions. These missions involve intense combat, but you're still young, and the strain on your body will hinder your development. As an adult, your body will be very weak. Obito extended his third root finger. Chakra is essentially a combination of mental and physical energy. Neither can be lacking. Your physical weakness will affect your total chakra reserves. If you aspire to become Hokage in the future, insufficient chakra reserves will be a major problem. Actually, Obito wasn't entirely lying. During the Fourth Shinobi World War, he fought Kakashi many times and knew Kakashi's weaknesses best. That means he's extremely short on mana. He was down after using Divine Might twice. Giving him Divine Might is such a waste. While Kakashi's lack of chakra was largely due to the Mangekyou Sharingan, for a master of the cage level, a single Sharingan should not be a burden. In particular, compared to Naruto Uzumaki next door, Kakashi's weaknesses are magnified infinitely. Look at Naruto, because he's the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, he's practically an unkillable cockroach. He has so much chakra that it could cover the entire allied shinobi forces. Even if he's temporarily exhausted, he just sits on the ground to rest for a while and immediately becomes energetic again. Kakashi, on the other hand, just collapsed and lay there like a corpse. When he fought Kakashi, if he hadn't held back an entire Pacific Ocean's worth of water, Kakashi would have been choked to death long ago. As a classmate, it's embarrassing, utterly embarrassing. Therefore, in this lifetime, we must make Kakashi pay attention to this issue no matter what. Kakashi did notice it, and a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. Even Rin, who was standing next to her, gaped open. Rin couldn't help but ask, Obito, is everything you're saying true? Then Kakashi, wouldn't it be better if he hadn't graduated? After a pause, Rin continued, but Obito, you were acting like a little adult just now. I always felt that only the Chunin instructors who were responsible for teaching us would say those things. Kakashi also found this quite surreal, and his dead fish eyes rolled upwards. When did Obito, that idiot, develop this kind of logical thinking ability? Moreover, what he said made a lot of sense, and he had already believed most of it. Perhaps becoming a ninja prematurely wasn't the best choice after all. But, Obito, I have no interest in becoming Hokage. That's a dream only someone like you would have. I just want to become a ninja as soon as possible and prove myself. And since I've become a ninja, I should complete my missions properly. Ninjas are born for missions. Those who can't complete their missions are useless. As for everything else, I don't care. Kakashi looked completely unconcerned. Obito was furious that Kakashi was ignoring his earnest advice after all that talking. If it weren't for the fact that they were in front of their classmates, he would have even wanted to slap Kakashi. He snorted coldly and leaned close to Kakashi's ear. Kakashi, just because Sakumo-senpai died, you've become like this? Don't make me look down on you. Episode 5, The Way to Become Strong. Then, Obito glanced around and lowered his voice even further. I want to tell you that your father was never a good-for-nothing, but a great hero in my eyes. Furthermore, there are many suspicious points in this matter. I suspect that no matter what choice Senior White Fang makes, whether he saves his comrades or completes the mission, the outcome will be the same. Do you believe me? Kakashi frowned. No matter what, he was still just a 5-year-old child. At this moment, he couldn't help but grab Obito's collar and question him. Obito, what did you mean by your last words? Explain yourself. Obito shrugged, glanced at his classmates and whispered a reminder. There are some things that are inconvenient to say here. Do you want to make it so that everyone knows? If you really want to know the reason, Lin and I will visit your house tonight, and we'll talk about it then. Kakashi looked at Obito's sincere and wise expression and gradually loosened his collar. I really don't understand. In just a few days, Obito seems like a completely different person. Although he still retains some traces of his past self, he has matured a lot and is no longer stupid. Could it be because of him? But it wasn't Obito who died, it was him. HMPH, come if you want. Kakashi shrugged and walked past Obito. I still need to register at the Hokage building, so I'll have to go now. Goodbye. After saying that, Kakashi walked through the crowd and gradually disappeared into the distance. Obito watched Kakashi's departing figure, a thoughtful expression on his face. Just then, he felt a tap on his shoulder. Rin leaned closer, looking suspicious. Obito, what did you and Kakashi talk about just now? You almost got into a fight. I didn't say anything, just told him we'd be visiting his house that evening. Rin was somewhat surprised. Kakashi agreed? It's no wonder Lin was surprised. Since White Fang's death, Kakashi has locked himself in his house and hasn't come to school for several days. She and Obito visited him several times but were always turned away. Obito nodded. Yes, I agreed. Lin immediately breathed a sigh of relief. She had noticed Kakashi's recent condition and could only watch helplessly as he struggled to cope. As expected, only Obito can change Kakashi. Lin suddenly realized she had bumped into something. Then, as if remembering something, she slapped her forehead. Oh, I almost forgot, we have class this afternoon. Daitu, let's go back. Lin tugged at Obito's clothes. Are we in class? Obito showed slight resistance. If we go back now, we won't hear Lin say, I'll always be watching over you. To be honest, Obito felt a little resentful that they had just left. However, once he remembered that in his past life, his willfulness had caused them both to be late and punished, he dismissed the idea. He smiled slightly. Let's go back. And so, the two returned to the classroom, chatting and laughing. Kakashi's graduation exam was held at noon, and he had to continue attending classes in the afternoon. Therefore, after visiting Kakashi's graduation exam site, most of the students gradually returned to their classrooms. Not long after, the Chunin teacher walked in, and the class officially began. Today's lesson is on ninjutsu. I will focus on explaining the principles of the three body techniques. Listen carefully, everyone. This is essential knowledge for graduation. Chunin-sensei started writing and drawing on the blackboard with chalk. Having just experienced Kakashi's graduation, most of the students were inspired and listened very attentively to the lesson. Obito also showed some seriousness. Those who don't like reading the background information can skip to the second half of episode 7, which is closely connected to the content preceding this text. The background information is purely something I wrote because I wanted to, and it doesn't affect the story. The ninjutsu course was the subject he disliked the most in his previous life. It only taught the most basic content, including the 3 body techniques, chakra extraction technique, and chakra control. However, these most basic contents involve a lot of dry and boring knowledge points, making people drowsy. The Ninja Academy would dedicate more than 1 class period each day to teaching this topic, patiently and tirelessly, continuing until graduation. In Obito's previous life, this was simply a waste of his life. What he wanted to learn were powerful and cool ninjutsu, not these hide-and-seek tricks. Many years later, Obito gradually realized that this idea was wrong. Obito traveled to many ninja villages and witnessed various methods of training ninjas. Some villages often start by teaching children all sorts of powerful ninjutsu, which greatly enhances their combat abilities once they learn them. However, they found it difficult to advance further. Their strength was essentially locked down, and even with a bit of luck, they could only become cannon fodder, used as cannon fodder in the Fourth Shinobi World War. The ninjas of Konoha village are rather special. Often, when they first graduate from the Ninja Academy, they are incredibly weak, but as long as they find a suitable instructor, some ninjas will unleash unimaginable talents and reach a level that other villages cannot comprehend in a short period of time. At first, Obito thought that Konoha was a place of outstanding people and abundant resources, with various clans possessing bloodline limit techniques emerging one after another, and they were all among the top clans from the Warring States period. It was normal for a few strong individuals to occasionally appear, but later, he gradually discovered that, apart from their own Uchiha clan, these bloodline limit families actually didn't produce many strong individuals. On the contrary, many ordinary geniuses have emerged one after another. Because of this phenomenon, Obito did some in-depth research and gradually discovered that it was Tobarama Senju, that cunning old fox, who had written many methods for becoming stronger into the most basic techniques. These skills are often neglected by those who have the means to inherit them. Only commoners with no resources will diligently practice them. The Konoha Ninja Academy is the fundamental reason why these ordinary geniuses become strong. Of course, since Obito spent most of his later life playing high-level games, his definition of a strong person was a little too high. At least one had to reach the level of Kage to be considered a strong person. In Obito's view, there are only 5 ways to become a strong person in the entire ninja world. The first is bloodline. Bloodline is the most direct and effective way to become stronger. For example, the Uchiha clan, as direct descendants of the Sage of Six Paths, possessed considerable combat power upon awakening their Sharingan. Their 3-tomo Sharingan was considered top tier among Jonin, and their Mangekyou Sharingan could instantly elevate them to the ranks of top-tier powerhouses. The reason why the Uchiha clan was wiped out in their previous life was because they were feared by many. Others spend decades painstakingly cultivating, only to have their skills diminished by a single awakening of the Sharingan by an Uchiha. Who could accept that? This bottom-of-the-barrel student once awakened the Kaleidoscope Sharingan, though only with one eye, combined with Hashirama's cells and Toba's possession, slaughtered the Hidden Mist village's Anbu like dogs. Why did he agree to it without even thinking when Itachi came looking for him after wiping out his clan in his past life? It wasn't just about acquiring a few Sharingan eyes. The bigger concern was that one day, some Uchiha might awaken a strange Mangekyou Sharingan, causing changes to the plan. Although his Kamui is powerful and can almost ignore most ninjutsu, Koto Amatsukami and Tsukuyomi can still threaten him. Who knows what else might come next? What if there's something to seal off space, or even something to stop time? He'd be dead then too. Therefore, they had no choice but to let their own kind die first. Episode 6, The Way to Become Strong. This shows how important it is to have good ancestors. Of course, it's not impossible to mutate if one doesn't have a good bloodline. For example, combining several chakra nature transformations can also create bloodline limits and bloodline elimination. The Tsuchikage Onoki and the Mizukage Terumi Mei followed this path. Or, like him, one could have interstitial cells transplanted to become stronger by acquiring someone else's bloodline. Many people have done transplants, including Uchiha Madara, but what impressed Obito the most was Kabuto Yakushi. This guy was definitely a genius. He changed his own genes by transplanting other people's bloodlines, breaking the limits of mortals and reaching a higher level of strength. Obito harbored deep fear of Kabuto Yakushi, who, having mastered the sage mode of Ryuchi Cave, may have already surpassed the level of an ordinary Kage. Therefore, in the entire ninja world, bloodline largely determines everything. If you don't have a bloodline, you have to find a way to create one. Even Madara had to bite off a piece of Hashirama's flesh to open the Rinnegan. Besides bloodline, the second way to become stronger is through secret techniques. In fact, many secret techniques are also related to bloodlines. For example, the Konoha no Shika Cho trio, if they didn't possess the bloodlines of Akamichi, Nara, or Yamanaka, it wouldn't be impossible for them to master their respective secret techniques, but it would be extremely difficult. The Union I lineage is considered the pinnacle of secret arts families. Through their secret arts, each generation can reach the level of a kage, or even become a powerful figure within the kage realm. For example, the third Raikage fought against 10,000 Iwa ninja and died. If he hadn't lacked wide-range attack ninjutsu, the outcome would have been uncertain. Aside from bloodline and secret techniques, the third way to become stronger is to possess a massive amount of chakra. Quantitative change can lead to qualitative change. When the quantity reaches a certain level, it will transform into a formidable master. Kisami's strength mostly stems from the chakra boost provided by Samahata. Of course, when it comes to massive amounts of chakra, the most representative example is the Jinchuriki. Every perfect Jinchuriki is a master at the kage level, and the 9 tails Jinchuriki surpasses even the level of an ordinary kage. The 10 tails Jinchuriki is comparable to the Sage of 6 Paths. However, becoming the 10 tails Jinchuriki is not easy. It requires extremely high standards of one's bloodline and mental will. Otherwise, one cannot even suppress the 10 tails. The fourth way to become stronger is through the Konoha Ninja Academy system. How can an ordinary genius become a strong person if they have neither bloodline nor Jinchuriki? The answer is to diligently complete all courses at the Konoha Ninja Academy and be fortunate enough to receive guidance from renowned teachers. Because of its favorable conditions, Konoha is a relatively peaceful village in the ninja world. Therefore, ninjas from Konoha can generally study systematically at the Ninja Academy for several years until graduation. Don't underestimate the power of systematic thinking. Although the Ninja Academy only teaches the most basic content, the more basic the content, the more it points to the essence. For example, the 3 bodies technique. The 3 bodies technique itself is not difficult to learn. As long as you remember the chakra flow path and try it a few times, you can release it by following the instructions. For those who possess the Sharingan, it is even easier to perfectly replicate it with just a glance. However, when the Ninja Academy teaches the 3 body technique, they also teach the underlying principles. The techniques of creating clones and transforming are both visual illusions, which are the most basic principles of illusion. The substitution technique involves summoning an object to take the hit for oneself, which involves the most basic principles of summoning and sealing techniques. The illusion techniques, summoning techniques, and sealing techniques behind the 3 bodies technique represent some of the highest level techniques in the ninja world. These techniques can completely steer the battle in a different direction. Tailed beasts are incredibly powerful. Their sheer size and strength are enough to give ordinary ninjas a run for their money. Furthermore, since they are chakra polymers, they are virtually immune to most ninjutsu. Tailed beasts also possess tailed beast balls capable of instantly destroying a village. Even for experts at the kage level, it is difficult to suppress a tailed beast if they do not have a variety of methods. However, tailed beasts are countered by genjutsu and sealing techniques, but can be summoned using summoning techniques. If these 3 techniques are used well, tailed beasts that are difficult for others to deal with can even be used as a means of victory. In addition, many advanced ninjutsu and even forbidden techniques are closely related to genjutsu, summoning techniques, and sealing techniques. Impure World Reincarnation is a summoning jutsu, and Reaper Death Seal is a sealing jutsu. These jutsu can even completely change the course of a battle, but to learn them, you need a good enough foundation, and these foundations are taught at the Ninja Academy. Furthermore, the 3 body technique demands a high degree of precision and timing in its execution. The process of training the 3 body technique can effectively develop a ninja's comprehensive abilities, including observation skills, chakra control skills, chakra perception skills, as well as adaptability and instantaneous reaction skills. Therefore, a ninja who truly masters the 3 body techniques to its fullest extent is a very well-rounded individual. Initially, such ninjas might not be very strong because they had not mastered powerful escape techniques, but as he grows, the foundation he built from childhood will become increasingly important. If he happens to have a renowned teacher to guide him at this time, he will learn everything quickly because of his solid foundation, and may even suddenly become incomprehensible to others in a short period of time. For example, the Flying Thunder God technique was taught to many people by Minato, including himself, Kakashi, and Rin, but none of them ultimately mastered it. The principle behind Flying Thunder God technique is to use a sealing technique to imprint the Flying Thunder God mark, then use a sensory technique to perceive the mark, and finally control the chakra on the mark to perform reverse summoning, thus achieving instantaneous teleportation. Alternatively, one could use sealing techniques to create a barrier remotely, and then use perception techniques and reverse spirit communication to transfer the attack. Learning the Flying Thunder God technique requires a high level of chakra control, chakra perception, sealing techniques, and summoning skills. To apply it in actual combat, one also needs adaptability, fast reflexes, and most importantly, spatial awareness. It's really difficult to gather all of these together. The Flying Thunder God technique requires extremely precise control. Even Obito, who possesses unparalleled spatial awareness, couldn't master it because of his lack of other fundamental skills. Throughout the entire history of Konoha, only Tobirama Senju and Minato Sensei truly grasped the basics. Other ninjas, even if they understood the principles, could only barely execute the Flying Thunder God formation by working together in groups. However, all the conditions required for the Flying Thunder God technique can be fully met during the practice of the three bodies technique, without missing a single one. Obito believed that while some people might not be able to learn the Flying Thunder God technique due to a lack of talent, it wasn't true that everyone was unable to learn it because of a lack of talent. I'm afraid many people are like him. They didn't pay attention to it during their school years, didn't put in the hard work, and thought that they were done with it once they could barely perform the three body techniques. After that, he began practicing more powerful and cooler looking ninjutsu. If he had put the same effort he used to practice the Great Fireball technique into the three bodies technique in his previous life, how could he not have mastered the Flying Thunder God technique, given his later spatial perception abilities? But who can blame me when the Fireball jutsu looks so much better than the three bodies technique? Sigh, I regret it now. Episode 7. The Way to Become Strong, Part 2. For example, Orochimaru's hidden trump cards. Whether it's the Orochi-style substitution technique, or various forbidden techniques involving summoning and sealing techniques, along with his profound knowledge and research abilities, he is the epitome of a genius and academic prodigy at the Konoha Ninja Academy. And the little girl who replenished his mana during the Fourth Shinobi World War, Sakura. She doesn't have a superior bloodline, but she possesses an exceptionally high level of chakra control and medical ninjutsu skills at a young age. These are not things that can be mastered simply by bloodline mutation. They require a great deal of theoretical knowledge. It's likely that she was a top student, similar to Orochimaru, back in the Ninja Academy. A similar example is his clansman, Uchiha Shisui, whose name, Shisui of the Body Flicker technique, was mostly earned through his Shadow Clone technique and Body Flicker technique, although his Sharingan Genjutsu certainly played a part in it. Furthermore, when Sasuke Uchiha fought Madara, he clearly lacked Madara's combat experience, had one less Rinnegan, and had less chakra than Madara, the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. In every aspect, he was inferior to Madara, so logically Madara should have crushed him. But in a real fight, Sasuke managed to suppress Madara in the limited one-on-one rounds, causing Madara to suffer a lot of losses. In Obito's view, although Madara was a strong fighter, most of his combat experience came from the Warring States period, consisting of wide-ranging and powerful techniques. In terms of refined execution, he was not as good as Sasuke, the academic genius of Konoha. Sasuke's ability to use the Rinnegan's ability to switch positions so skillfully is likely due to the foundation he laid while practicing the three bodies technique. Therefore, Obito considered most of the knowledge taught at the Konoha Ninja Academy to be useful and extremely useful. Minato, for example, was born into a commoner family and could not learn advanced ninjutsu, so he could only practice the three body techniques to the point of exhaustion, but that did not hinder him at all. After learning about the Flying Thunder God technique, he quickly mastered it and became a killer who could move freely on the battlefield. Obito had to admire Tobirama Senju's foresight. There was a profound reason why the three-body technique was a required subject for graduating from the Ninja Academy. However, he also had to admit that Tobirama Senju's move was truly insidious. The three-body technique seems quite ordinary. Most bloodline clans wouldn't waste time on it. Only commoner ninjas without resources would put in the hard work. Even if you master the three-body techniques, you still need to learn advanced ninjutsu from the Scroll of Sealing to become stronger. However, the Book of Sealing is in the hands of the Hokage's lineage. Unless one has a bloodline limit like Shisui, a commoner genius who wants to become stronger must become a follower of the Hokage's lineage. In this way, the power of the Hokage's lineage and the various clans in the village are maintained in balance. Ha, the cunning old devil with 1,000 hands. As for the fifth way to become stronger, it is through immortal techniques. Sage mode is closely related to the three holy lands, but unfortunately Obito didn't have much access to information on this. The only thing he could speculate on was that the learning conditions for Sage mode were related to one's soul and physical constitution. Orochimaru couldn't learn it, but Kabuto did, because Kabuto's soul was more complete than Orochimaru's and his bloodline had mutated, making his physique stronger. The same goes for Minato. He was never seen using Sage mode in his lifetime, but he could instantly activate it in Edo Tensei state. It's possible that he became the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, which enhanced his soul and physique in some way. Besides the 5 categories mentioned above, the last way to become stronger is to seek external help. Sasori's puppets, Deidara's clay, including Kakuzu's earth grudge fear and Kisami's Samahata, all involve external forces to varying degrees. Of course, these external forces are also included in the methods mentioned above. The reason I'm bringing this up separately is because Obito was paralyzed by 600 billion explosive tags. Although these explosive tags were probably created by Conan using her divine paper-wielding technique, they were part of her own power. However, explosive tags can indeed be bought with money. If Kakuzu were to use all his earnings to buy explosive tags and combine them with Tobirama Senju's multiplicative explosive tags, the combined effect would be quite terrifying. As someone who experienced it firsthand, Obito felt that the power of those 600 billion explosive tags was probably even greater than Hashirama's wood release or Madara's perfect Susanoo. That move would be considered a powerful attack even at the 6 paths level. If used properly, it could have seriously injured Kaguya. If he hadn't been able to intangibly transform into Izanagi, he would have been blown to bits. However, now that he has obtained dual Kamui, both his teleportation speed and the duration of his intangibility have been greatly enhanced. If Conan were to do it again, she probably wouldn't be able to do anything to him. He could even use his left eye to redirect the explosion. Therefore, upon careful consideration, there are probably not many means left in the entire ninja world that can endanger him. In short, all methods of becoming stronger have limitations, but many can be combined, and the foundation laid by the Konoha Ninja Academy is a perfect example of this. In his past life, he was a loser, and even after becoming a powerful figure, he relied heavily on his own eye techniques. In this lifetime, it's time to solidify my foundation. Therefore, Obito listened especially attentively to this ninjutsu lesson, even opening his textbook, which he had barely touched in his previous life, to carefully study the knowledge points inside. Rin witnessed this scene and couldn't help but smile with relief. Obito, he really has grown up. And so, time slipped away unnoticed, and soon, the class was over. Alright, that concludes today's lesson. Students can take a short break, and then meet back at the outdoor training area. After the teacher announced the end of get out of class, she left the classroom. Ninja academies are places for training ninjas. In addition to various theoretical knowledge, they also have a lot of outdoor courses, including combat, throwing ninja tools, survival drills, teamwork, stress resistance training, and so on. It can be said that Ninja Academy students spend almost half of their time outdoors. After class, Obito naturally approached Rin, and the two walked together towards the training ground. Rin squinted and asked, "Obito, you've actually started reading today? Don't you usually hate these boring and tedious things?" Obito's eyes were deep. "Rin, people always grow up. I don't want to be a loser anymore. I want to protect you from harm, so I need to learn many, many things to become stronger." Rin nodded, clenching her little fist. "Obito, do your best. First grade, Class A, assemble. Report to me for registration. We'll begin the practical group work." Shortly after arriving at the training ground, the practical training session began. For students of their age, since they can't unleash many powerful ninjutsu, practical combat lessons are mostly based on taijutsu, with at most some use of the 3 body techniques. As for shuriken, because children don't know their own strength and it's quite dangerous, they are not allowed to be used in battles. Obito was rather uninterested. Although practical combat was one of his favorite courses in his previous life, it was because he always felt he could defeat Kakashi. Now that he's been through too many battles, facing either Kage or ninjas of similar strength, there's really no point in him coming back to bully a bunch of little kids. Episode 8 Practical Lessons. However, at least it would be a good opportunity to practice the basics. With that in mind, Obito obediently went to report to his Chunin teacher. Obito's previous opponent was Kakashi, a result he actively requested. But now that Kakashi has graduated early, it's natural that a new opponent needs to be chosen. After thinking for a moment, the Chunin instructor said, "Obito, from now on, you'll be paired with Might Guy." The teacher grouped 2 students with similar abilities together based on their grades. Obito nodded. This arrangement was exactly the same as in his previous life. In his past life, he was kicked into a state of depression by Guy. He felt that it was one thing to be unable to beat Kakashi, but to be unable to beat Guy, who was also a loser, made him realize how weak he was. But now he finally understands that losing to a freak is not shameful. The teachers divided the students into groups and quickly arranged everything. Due to limited space in the training ground, a group-based sparring format was adopted, with Obito and Guy forming the last group. A bunch of kids fighting, punching and kicking wildly. It's really not very interesting. Most of the time, Obito's mind is wandering, thinking about when to go to a megacure and plan ahead for Akatsuki. He had deep feelings for Shao. It wasn't just because he had promised Nagato he would bring peace to the world. He had also worked tirelessly for the development of Akatsuki. Aside from shouting slogans and claiming to be a god, Nagato basically does nothing else all day long. It was all thanks to his strategic planning and his tireless efforts, acting as both father and mother to the company, that Dai Shao was able to develop so quickly. The Rain Village is quite far, and he doesn't want to use Kamui's eye power. How can he get there? Thinking about it this way, it's like being basking in the sunlight, yet still bound by the rules of reality. It feels a bit restrictive. While Obito was lost in his daydreams, it was time for him to face off against Guy. Obito, Guy, step forward and form hand seals. Obito had no choice but to put aside his thoughts and go to the center of the training ground, with Guy, where they formed a hand seal of opposition. Obito, let's burn with youthful passion together. Kai grinned at him. A glint seemed to flash across his teeth. Ha ha ha. Quote, the surrounding students burst into laughter. What's so interesting about two losers? Exactly, even if we win, we'll still be at the bottom of the standings. Among them, several unfamiliar faces to Obito began to mock him. They were a group of students from small, privileged families and those with average grades. Lacking the upbringing of a wealthy family, yet believing themselves to be superior, despite their mediocre academic performance. They don't want to compete for excellence but only for mediocrity, deriving a sense of superiority from those weaker than themselves. Normally, this group is the loudest. But unfortunately, there are too many people like this in Konoha. From top to bottom, from the higher-ups to ordinary villagers, they learn nothing but how to bully, which is extremely disgusting. Obito glared at these people, then suddenly remembered his past life. In his previous life, he infiltrated Konoha with the initial intention of taking the Nine Tails away while his teacher's wife was at her weakest. After all, under normal circumstances, to seize the Nine Tails, one would have to face two powerful opponents. A master of space-time ninjutsu and a master of sealing techniques for the Nine Tails. Jinchuriki. This combination is terrifying. They can run, fight, control, and heal, possessing extremely high mobility and wide-area destructive power. They are far more terrifying than the Abi combination from Kumogakure. The key point is that these two are still young and in the process of growing up. Who knows how far they will go in the future? Obito thought that if he gave his master and mistress more time to grow, they could use guerrilla tactics to take down the Akatsuki. Although Nagato possessed the Rinnegan, his limited mobility meant he was completely helpless against Minato. Although he himself possesses a kaleidoscope of spatial abilities, Minato-sensei can keep up. Then Kushina and Minato joined forces, using the adamantine seal in their left hand and the tailed beast ball in their right, making it clear that they couldn't escape or defeat each other. So, despite feeling sorry for his master's wife, he had no choice but to take action in Konoha village for the sake of the plan. He used the bond between good people to limit Minato's movement speed and took advantage of the leader's weakened state during childbirth to limit her power, and only then did he have a chance to seize the Nine Tails. In fact, he did succeed. He really didn't mean to kill Minato-sensei. In fact, the eldest sister was very resilient and might have survived. But then, at the crucial moment, he suddenly remembered that there were a lot of ungrateful villagers in Konoha. His anger surged, and he suddenly wanted to release the Nine Tails to teach them a lesson. I acted on impulse and did it. It was something that had been planned for a long time, but it also happened on a whim. Of all the mistakes he made, this was the most serious and the one he couldn't forgive. He didn't even know how to face Kushina, the eldest sister. In the end, Kakashi wanted to kill him, but Minato stopped him, and Minato's son, Naruto Uzumaki, forgave him. This only increased his sense of guilt. At this moment, he was even jealous. Why should this bunch of ingrates from Konoha village be protected by Minato's family? Thinking of this, his murderous intent surged. Shut up, quote. Obito spoke sternly to the crowd that had just been mocking him. The aura of the powerful figure emerging from the mountain of corpses and sea of blood, along with the palpable killing intent, nearly terrified the group of kids. They stood frozen in place, trembling all over. If Obito hadn't retained some rationality and managed to restrain his aura somewhat, these kids would have either died or developed severe mental illnesses, ending their ninja careers. However, Obito's killing intent was only directed at specific groups of people. Others didn't feel it much. Even the Chunin instructors only felt that Obito was upset by being mocked. Obito did this all the time, and everyone was used to it. So the teacher quickly said, "Alright, ninjas must learn to ignore distractions and fight well. I declare the duel begin." Almost as soon as he finished speaking, Kai, who was itching to attack, launched a flying kick, shouting as he kicked, "Burn my youth." This move is truly impressive. It doesn't rely on fancy techniques. It's just a combination of power and speed. If you're fast and accurate enough, you're invincible. Obito suffered from this move countless times in his previous life. He knew it, but he just couldn't dodge it. He couldn't help but wonder if Kai's kick to him was like having a cheat code unlocked, and if he could kick Madara like that, would Madara have survived? As for why he can be distracted in battle now, it's simply because no matter how strong Kai is, he's still just a first-year student, and his speed is too slow in his eyes. No sooner said than done. Kai's kick landed solidly, sending Obito flying. He spun once in the air before landing. Rin, who was watching from the sidelines, became worried. Her eyes welled up with tears, and she couldn't help but call out, "Obito!" Bang! However, Obito, who was sent flying, turned into a piece of old tree root, while his true form appeared behind Guy. Kai's attack missed its mark. His technique was outdated, and his body was riddled with openings. Obito knocked Kai to the ground with a single, gentle punch. Chunin Sensei's eyes lit up, even showing some surprise. Episode 9 Heading to the Hitaki family. The three bodies technique is indeed a basic skill, but it's quite remarkable that a first-year student can actually use it. Moreover, the reason Obito was able to defeat Guy in one move was because he timed his substitution technique perfectly. If you use it too early, Kai will notice something is wrong and stop using it. If you use it too late, you'll really get kicked away. It's precisely at this moment, when you think, "I think I've hit you, you can't dodge it, I've won," that they activate their substitution technique, making it impossible to defend against. Even if a Chunin teacher were to use this substitution jutsu himself, it wouldn't be anything special. Therefore, the Chunin instructor nodded in satisfaction and praised, "Very good, Obito. You've improved. Not only did you use the substitution jutsu, but you used it very well. The duel is over, Obito wins." The Chunin instructor took out a small booklet and began taking notes. Obito's ability to use the substitution jutsu was a huge plus, and his grade would have to be moved up a bit. Obito, however, was not very satisfied. He realized the enormous gap between himself and Minato-sensei. Minato completed most of his attack before teleporting away, so the attack arrived the moment he teleported away, without any delay, leaving Minato no time to react. Although this was due to the difference between the Flying Thunder God technique and the substitute technique, he knew from sparring with Minato that even with the substitute technique, Minato was much faster than him. He couldn't handle all the micromanagement involved. Furthermore, Minato's technique can be used in actual combat, while his, although also used in actual combat, is completely bullying children. Against a cage-level expert, it's impossible for him to have such a large opening in the attack's recovery animation. He still needs improvement. By this time, Kai had gotten up and regained his energy. As expected of someone who can fight Kakashi, "Obito, you're strong. But next time, I definitely won't lose." Kai gave a thumbs up. Obito suddenly sensed Kakashi's helplessness. After some self-assessment, he realized that under normal circumstances, he could actually use his 3-tomo technique for a while in battle. With his combat experience, and the fact that he can already intangibly transform himself for a period of time with his 3-tomo, although his body is still young, the strength he can exert will not be much weaker than Kakashi's when he grows up and doesn't use Kamui. That's enough time to get entangled with the shadows of each village for a while. Guy has a long way to go to defeat him. Even if Guy grows to the point where he can fight Madara, he will still be growing. When he unleashes both Kamui, he will dare to turn his back on Kagaya Otsutsuki. So this is the world of geniuses? Their abilities far surpass those of their peers. No wonder geniuses are often aloof. Obito quickly smiled at Guy and said, "I only managed to use this move with difficulty. Go find Kakashi. He's your lifelong rival. And I can help you find him." "Really?" Kai exclaimed excitedly. Compared to Obito, Kakashi was still more important. "Really?" Obito grinned slyly. He didn't want to get entangled with Guy, so he could only ask Kakashi to do it. The two laughed and retreated back into the crowd. Apart from the students who were still too shocked to speak and the more knowledgeable teachers, no one else seemed too surprised. From their perspective, a battle between two bottom-of-the-class students is not worth paying attention to, regardless of who wins or loses. Lin was overjoyed. Alright, take a short break, then we'll move on to shuriken throwing practice. The teacher continued to make arrangements. Obito blended into the crowd and completed the training in a standard manner. Since it was all basic content, it was too easy for him. Even if he tried to hide his shortcomings, he couldn't. He got full marks in almost every item. This made many classmates notice Obito's difference, and the Chunin teachers began to ponder it. Could it be that because Obito's rival has always been Kakashi, and he's always been suppressed by Kakashi, now that Kakashi is gone, Obito is taking off? But just a day ago, I couldn't even hit the target with shuriken, and now I'm hitting the bullseye repeatedly. Isn't this rate of improvement a bit too outrageous? The Chunin instructor was baffled, but there were too many strange things happening in the ninja world, so he didn't think much of it and just assumed that Obito had been stimulated by Kakashi and had finally figured it out. Obito had no idea what his teacher was thinking. After all the training was over and the teacher announced that school was over, he met up with Rin. After eating at a roadside stall, the two headed towards the Hitaki residence. By the time they arrived at the Hitaki family's house, it was already half dark. Lin went up and knocked on the door. Shortly after, Kakashi opened the door, revealing his listless, dead fish-like eyes. In his memory, the Hitaki family home was a warm place, but at this moment, behind Kakashi, it was pitch black and dim. Kakashi, you didn't turn on the light? Lin asked with some concern. Kakashi lazily uttered an "ah," seemingly only now remembering to greet the guest and go inside to turn on the lights. Come in. As Obito and Rin entered the house, they immediately felt a sense of oppression, because in the center of the room was a portrait of a deceased person. Tsukumo Hitaki, the White Fang of Konoha, this master swordsman and the great hero whom Obito admired, is right there. A true practitioner of the will of fire committed suicide, leaving Obito with a sense of unease. In his past life, he had entered and exited Konoha many times, and with White Zetsu as a useful intelligence agent, he knew the situation in Konoha better than anyone else. Senior White Fang wasn't simply defeated by rumors and gossip. What truly killed him was the will of fire that he had always upheld. Obito knew all too well the feeling of his beliefs crumbling. If he hadn't fallen into hell and was still that naive, hot-blooded fool, he probably wouldn't be able to accept that someone who constantly talks about the will of fire, and someone who constantly says they're doing this for Konoha could simultaneously turn those lofty beliefs into a murderous blade and stab their own people in the back. If he were in his shoes, he would also feel disheartened and couldn't help but ask, why did this happen? How could this be? Furthermore, compared to traditional ninjas, the Hitaki family was originally a samurai family. Samurai always value honor and beliefs above all else. Therefore, Senior White Fang committed suicide. In Obito's view, heroes are not immune to death. They can die in battle or make a tragic sacrifice, but they should never die in such a vile political struggle. Therefore, Obito felt that this world was beyond saving, that people's hearts were all ugly, and that only the illusion of the infinite Tsukuyomi could keep heroes on their path. In his previous life, he didn't even want to revive Lin, nor did he want her to face these sordid things. With a sigh, Obito stepped forward slightly, closed his eyes, and solemnly bowed to White Fang. Seeing this, Rin followed suit and bowed to Kakashi's father to express her respect. Kakashi frowned and walked over, blocking the photo of White Fang. His tone was indifferent, and he spoke as if it were a matter of course. In the world of ninjas, those who break the rules and regulations are nothing but trash. You don't need to show such respect to trash. Episode 10 Kakashi's Talk no Jutsu. Lin hesitated, wanting to say something to Kakashi, but her usual upbringing left her unsure how to respond. Obito sneered. Kakashi, if it were me in the past, I would have told you that those who break the rules are trash, but those who don't cherish their comrades are even worse than trash. Kakashi's pupils constricted sharply. Those words struck him like a morning bell. But Obito's tone shifted. Now I just want to tell you that rules and regulations are made by people. If in a village that emphasizes the will of fire, rules and regulations force a hero who believes in the will of fire to make difficult choices, and in the end he not only fails to be respected but is also condemned by everyone, then perhaps the rules and regulations themselves are wrong. Upon hearing this outrageous remark, both Rin and Kakashi were shocked. Rin even stepped forward to try and cover Obito's mouth. Obito's words were so blunt that it sounded like he was about to curse the leader of Konoha. Even though they were young, they knew that some things shouldn't be said carelessly. Obito gave Rin a reassuring look and continued speaking to Kakashi. Imagine if Senior White Fang abandoned his companions and completed the mission. What do you think would happen? Would the villagers think that Senior White Fang had a very high level of awareness? Or would they say that he was just a cold-blooded and ruthless person who killed his companions and was not trustworthy at all? Kakashi froze on the spot, his face pale, swaying precariously. He tried to argue. No, in the ninja world, as long as the mission is completed, there's nothing wrong with it, and no one will say anything. Obito sneered. Kakashi, you're still too naive. Think about it. Would you rather your future comrade be someone who'd do anything to complete a mission, or someone who cherishes their comrades? Kakashi's eyes widened in confusion. He stubbornly retorted, if it's a necessary sacrifice. What's wrong with using any means necessary to complete the mission? I'm willing to partner with someone like that. Obito was furious and couldn't help but shout, Kakashi. Then, he spoke slowly. If you truly thought that way, you wouldn't have hesitated in the first place. And even if you really thought that way, most people's opinions would absolutely, positively differ from yours. Because no one can guarantee that they won't be the next one sacrificed. Life is paramount, and out of self-preservation, they will subconsciously resist those who abandon their comrades. Therefore, if Senior White Fang had chosen to abandon his comrades to complete the mission, he would have been drowned in scorn just as easily once the news spread. Obito's words were so irrefutable that they shattered Rin and Kakashi's worldview. Lin trembled, her eyes dim and lifeless. She murmured to herself, how could this be? Does that mean that whatever Senior White Fang does is wrong? Obito said gently to Rin, no, that's not it. The villagers are narrow-minded. They can't accurately assess the cost of completing the task. So, from their perspective, whether the task fails or people die trying to complete it, it's a loss for the village. They're also members of the village, so it's normal for them to feel resentful. Obito paused, then glanced deliberately at Kakashi before continuing. So, to avoid such situations, missions in the ninja world are kept secret. White Fang's senpai always carried out high-level missions with extremely high levels of secrecy. Kakashi, tell me, why would the details of White Fang Senpai's missions leak out and become common knowledge? Could it be that the Anbu under your father's command are all idiots, unable to prevent the spread of leaked information immediately? If every high-level mission is kept this secret, what secrets will Konoha have left in the eyes of other villages? I'm not going to beat around the bush with you anymore. For a high-level mission to be leaked and not stopped, it's only possible that the Konoha higher-ups themselves were behind it. Leaving aside the impact of those words on Kakashi, Rin was the first to feel fear. Obito, is that really true? Obito didn't deny it, but simply patted Rin on the shoulder and said, Rin, don't be afraid. No matter what lies ahead, I will always protect you. Lin felt slightly relieved, but her expression remained somber, clearly unable to easily escape the gloom in her heart. Obito sighed. He regretted saying those things in front of Rin. He was absolutely certain that Lin, 26 years later, would understand everything and be able to tolerate everything. But he forgot that Lin had experienced life and death at that time, and had witnessed everything at the crossroads of the underworld. Lin is a kind person, so even though she has come to understand the true nature of the world, she still loves it. But Rin is still too young. The truth about Konoha is already too cruel for her. However, once the words were spoken, there was no going back. He believed Lin could get through it because he knew she was stronger than anyone else. Obito looked at Kakashi. Kakashi, you're a smart person, so I think you should understand. This mission itself is a trap set for Senior White Fang, so whatever choice he makes, he's wrong. Kakashi was sweating profusely. Compared to Rin, he was a first-hand witness to the whole affair, so he was more deeply affected by the shockwaves. The more he thought about Obito's words, the more chilled he felt. He had already believed 7 or 8 parts, even 9 parts of them. The last part wasn't that he didn't believe them, but that he didn't want to believe them, and he dared not believe them. He asked in a hoarse voice, Obito, tell me, what should I do now? Kakashi was confused. If he admitted that all of this was true, it also meant that he had to face a mountain that he could not climb with his current abilities. Obito looked at Kakashi with a pitiful expression. He swore that he really didn't intentionally smear Konoha. He had simply recounted the whole story. But if you tell the whole story, Konoha becomes incredibly corrupt. This is true of Kakashi now, and also of Sasuke, who was fooled by him in his past life. To be honest, he felt that at least in this matter, Hiruzen Sarutobi might not have much ill intention. Even from a politician's perspective, in terms of both stance and ideology, the Hatake lineage was a true and loyal Hokage faction, someone who could be trusted and relied upon. So even Obito couldn't understand what kind of bizarre move Konoha was making. After a moment's thought, he looked at Kakashi. Alright, I won't continue analyzing for you. I'll just tell you the result directly. Hiruzen Sarutobi might not have many bad intentions. Perhaps a little, but not much. As the highest ruler of a village, he inevitably comes into contact with darkness. His indecisive nature is what led him to make many mistakes. But your grudge against him isn't really that great. Just remember one person, Shimura Danzo. He's the culprit who harmed your father. And even in the future, if anything dirty happens and you can't find out who did it, don't even think about it. It will definitely be this person. Obito rewrites Naruto, Dual Kamui to save Rin. Welcome funds. Enjoy exclusive audiobook experiences right here. Check out my website for more episodes and audiobooks. Links are in the description. What? Quote, although they knew Obito might reveal a very, very big secret, his words still shocked them. Obito, what does it mean that you've returned after 26 years? Lin asked, somewhat incredulously. Obito sat down cross-legged. Sit down first, I need to explain slowly. Seeing this, the two exchanged a glance and hesitantly sat down next to Obito. Obito's eyes were deep as he slowly said, you can also understand it as me having a dream about everything that will happen to me from now until 26 years from now. If the idea of traveling through time back to the past seems a bit unbelievable, then a prophecy is much easier to understand. Rin's mouth dropped open. No, Obito, I understand. You mean, you're the Obito from the future who came back to the present? Rin rested her chin on her hand, pondering for a moment, and said, you give me the impression that you've suddenly matured and grown up. Although I'm certain you're still the same Obito, you've definitely changed a lot. If you came from the future, then everything makes sense. Rin suddenly understood where the emotions of life and death separation and long-awaited reunion that she felt from Obito's embrace came from. So, something happened to her in the future. For a moment, she was in complete turmoil. Compared to Rin, Kakashi could not accept such a thing. Traveling back to the past from the future? That's unbelievable. Obito, you haven't fallen under some kind of genjutsu, have you? Obito snorted. Kakashi, you felt my chakra just now, didn't you? And this space, and my eyes too. If you could have all these things just by being caught in a genjutsu, I think no one would need to train. Kakashi was speechless for a moment. He had indeed felt a huge cold chakra emanating from Obito. Obito suddenly seemed like a different person. He had only ever felt that kind of oppressive aura from his father. Thinking of this, Kakashi narrowed his eyes. Compared to Obito's rebirth, he suddenly had a more pressing question. Obito, how strong are you now? How do you compare to my father? Obito looked thoughtful. I haven't fought against Senior White Fang. After all, I'm only 5 years old. Expecting a 5-year-old to have much of an impression of a deceased elder is a bit of an overestimation. Obito paused for a moment, then revealed a confident expression. But I think that if I'm willing to pay a price, White Fang shouldn't be a match for me. Judging from the information available, Senior White Fang should be a master swordsman with extremely sharp close combat skills. Even by the highest estimate, it shouldn't have surpassed the level of an ordinary film. Otherwise, World War II would have ended much sooner. He hasn't surpassed the level of an ordinary Kage. At most, he's at the level of the third Raikage. That would indeed be terrifying, but in close combat, unless you reach the level of space distortion like Guy, you'd be countered by his abilities. Kakashi snorted. He didn't believe Obito's words. As his son, he felt his father's strength most deeply. Even though he was called a genius, he still felt a huge, insurmountable gap in his daily sparring with his father. If his father got serious, he wouldn't be able to withstand a single move. No, he would die. Therefore, his expression became serious. Obito, you used to think you were stronger than me, but you never beat me even once. I don't really believe what you say. You idiot, you're always so arrogant. So, Kakashi stood up, his eyes sharp, and assumed an offensive stance, staring intently at Obito. Let's fight. Let me see your strength. If you can beat me, I'll listen to your story about traveling from the future to the present. Sensing Kakashi's resolve, Obito stood up as well, and couldn't help but sigh, as expected. Before saying things that others find hard to accept, you still have to fight first. He recalled the scene before his rebirth when Naruto persuaded him. He was willing to listen to Naruto because, ultimately, Naruto had the right to talk to him. Kakashi, slightly annoyed by Obito's nonchalant attitude, said, Obito, such contempt will lead to great consequences. Obito nonchalantly shrugged. Kakashi, you don't understand how vast the gap is between us. Just like I didn't understand how vast the gap was between us when we were kids. He activated his 3-tomo jade pendant. If those eyes from before were unfamiliar to you, then these eyes, even if you haven't seen them before, you've at least heard of them, right? Kakashi was startled, his deadpan eyes finally showing a change. 3 Tomo. How is that possible? His father had explained the Uchiha clan to him, explaining that every Uchiha who awakened their Sharingan gained immense power, increasing from 1 Tomo to 3 Tomo. The 3 Tomo Sharingan is the pinnacle of the Sharingan. He asked his father curiously how powerful the 3 Tomo Sharingan was, and his father, unusually, showed a hint of caution. He still remembered what his father had said to him that day. The Uchiha with the 3 Tomo have greatly enhanced dynamic vision, capable of detecting the trajectory of every enemy attack. Even our Hatake clan's swordsmanship, no matter how elusive, will be seen through by those eyes. Their exceptional dynamic vision allows them to easily become masters of taijutsu and ninja tool throwing. Combined with the Uchiha clan's formidable fire-style ninjutsu and the terrifying genjutsu inherent in their eyes, they are powerful in every aspect, without any blind spots. There's a famous saying in the ninja world, if a typical jonin faces a 3 Tomo opponent one-on-one, they should run away. Even I wouldn't dare look directly into those eyes during a fight. Recalling his father's words, Kakashi's expression no longer held any contempt. Obito, you may be very, very strong, however. Kakashi continued to recall. Then he continued, asking White Fang, so, father, can you win? White Fang simply smiled slightly, a powerful confidence radiating from his face, and squatted down to pat his head. We will win. Kakashi paused for a moment, then continued to ask, but can't the Sharingan see through everything? White Fang continued with a smile, as long as you're fast enough that even if you see through the attack's trajectory, your body won't be able to react in time, you'll naturally win. Kakashi snapped out of his daze, the fleeting fear on his face vanishing. Obito quietly observed Kakashi's change and asked, what, Kakashi, have you found a way to deal with me? Kakashi said, even if you have these eyes, as long as you're fast enough, you can end the battle. Let's decide the outcome with speed. In an instant, Kakashi moved, lightning crackling around him, his speed surpassing anything he had ever done before. He transformed into a blur, attacking Obito. Episode 13. Is Lin dead in the future? Lin watched helplessly as the two started fighting again. This is the umpteenth time they've fought since they met. She tried to persuade him, but to no avail, so in the end she simply gave up. If there's anything different about this time, it's that this challenge was initiated by Kakashi. Rin was always on edge whenever the two fought, while Kakashi wasn't too worried. He was mainly concerned about Obito. The same applies now, even though we know that Obito is different now, with the incredible spatial abilities he's shown before, and considering that he came from the future and might have a wealth of combat experience, he's probably stronger than Kakashi. But seeing Kakashi flash with electricity and rush towards Obito at a speed almost imperceptible to the naked eye, Rin couldn't help but shout out, Obito. The 2 words had barely left his lips when Kakashi's fist was already in front of Obito. However, Obito remained completely oblivious, standing still in place. Could it be a stand-in? Lin clenched her fists nervously. Having seen Obito use this technique before, Rin felt more confident. However, Kakashi, who was in the midst of the battle, was the one best able to analyze the situation. There were no hand seals or jutsu marks. Obito stood frozen in place. Was it because he couldn't react? As expected, there's nothing to fear from those eyes. My newly developed lightning release ninjutsu, though still immature, can greatly enhance my speed. Even 3 Tomo Jades couldn't react in time. Now, my speed is probably not much slower than my father's. Obito, I won. Kakashi delivered a powerful punch to Obito's face. However, this friendship-breaking punch didn't feel like it hit anything substantial. It was as if there was nothing in front of it. In the instant Kakashi was horrified, he uncontrollably passed through Obito's body. Yes, that's exactly it. It passed right through Obito, as if Obito were just a ghost, without any physical form. How is that possible? Kakashi was horrified. This bizarre ability was beyond his comprehension. In the instant the two passed each other, Obito casually turned away. Then, a heavy elbow strike landed on Kakashi's back. Bang! Kakashi fell to the ground. Obito withdrew his hand and calmly asked, Kakashi, shall we continue? Kakashi lay on the ground, speechless for a long time. After a while, he couldn't help but ask, What kind of ability was that just now? Obito slowly said, it's an ability generated by my Mangekyou Sharingan that allows me to become intangible for a period of time. Of course, I wasn't sure if I could use this ability in this space. I just did a small experiment, and it actually works. Kakashi was taken aback, then gave a wry smile. You weren't even serious just now. You were just doing an experiment? Obito nodded. Yes, it's just an experiment. The essence of my intangibility is actually hiding my body in another dimension. Just like the space-time portal I used at the beginning, it's a type of space-time ninjutsu. However, in my previous life when I was in this divine might space, I was unable to continue using the ability to become ethereal. But after gaining my eyes, I wondered, since I can transfer my body from the real world to this space, could I transfer my body from this space to the real world? Surprisingly, I succeeded. Kakashi frowned. I didn't understand a lot of that. And aren't Sharingan supposed to be a pair? Are you going to lose one eye in the future? Obito nodded, squatted down, looked at Kakashi, and said calmly, in my past life, I did indeed only have one eye for a very long time because the other eye is in you. What? Quote, not only was Kakashi shocked, but Rin also ran over. She was surprised that Obito could defeat Kakashi so easily, but she was more concerned about what would happen in the future. Obito, why is one of your eyes on Kakashi in the future? Obito sat down, pulling Rin down with him, and looked at Kakashi. Now, can you tell me the whole story? Kakashi rolled over, barely managing to sit up, clutching his back and saying helplessly, you really went all out. Do I even have the right to disobey now? Go on. Obito nodded. There's a lot to say, and I probably can't say it all at once. I'll try to focus on the key points. Obito's expression turned serious. Rin, Kakashi. In the future, we formed a team. During one mission, I was crushed by a giant boulder. I thought I wouldn't survive, so I gave you one of my eyes, Kakashi, as a gift for your promotion to Jonin. Rin astutely picked up on the key information. Obito, so you're saying you didn't die. And when did Kakashi become a Jonin in the future? Obito slowly said, 7 years later. Rin was both worried and excited. 7 years later, Kakashi will only be 12 years old, right? Becoming a Jonin at 12 is amazing. But, Obito, what happened to you later? And then, a hint of sadness appeared in Obito's eyes. Later, someone saved me. At that time, half of my body was crushed. If I hadn't already possessed some ability to become ethereal, I might have died long ago. Lin breathed a sigh of relief. So, what about me? She asked the question cautiously. Obito looked at Rin, remaining silent for a moment. After a while, he said, Lin, you were fine at the time, but something happened not long after. Rin was already mentally prepared, muttering to herself as expected. Something's happened to me. Obito, am I dead? Obito desperately wanted to avoid the question. Even now, he still didn't want to recall that scene. But seeing the questioning look in Lin's eyes, he could only slowly say, I'm sorry, Lin, I didn't protect you well. The person who saved me didn't mean any harm. To achieve his plan, he deliberately led me astray. At that time, the Third Shinobi World War broke out. He controlled Kirigakure and planted the three tails inside you. To avoid bringing disaster to the village, you deliberately died at Kakashi's hands, and I just happened to witness that scene. As he finished speaking, Obito's voice became hoarse. That was the beginning of hell. The story Obito told was so cruel that Rin and Kakashi fell silent for a moment, unable to imagine what that scene must have been like. So that's how it is. Rin broke the silence. But Obito, what is the three tails? Obito was somewhat speechless, having forgotten that Rin and Kakashi were still young and naturally unable to obtain information about the tailed beasts. He explained, the three tails can be simply understood as a very powerful summoning beast, a tool of war for the major ninja villages, capable of destroying an entire village with a single blow. Lin thought for a moment, then smiled gently, I see. So, I sacrificed myself to protect the village in the future. Episode 14 Venting. Obito was a little worried. Rin shook her head. Obito, you don't need to blame yourself. The teacher said on the first day of class that being a ninja is a high-risk profession. You have to be prepared to die at any moment. Although hearing the news that I would die in the future has left me deeply unsettled, if it's to protect the village, thinking about it carefully, it's not so bad. Besides, Rin smiled, since Obito, you came from the future. Everything in the future has changed, hasn't it? Obito breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at Rin very seriously. Rin, I will never let you die again. I said I would work hard to improve myself and protect you. Rin nodded slightly, her face flushing as she looked at Obito's earnest gaze. However, as if she had thought of something, a hint of sadness and heartache appeared in Lin's eyes. Obito, it must have been very painful to watch me die, right? I hope you won't blame Kakashi. Obito gave a bitter laugh and lowered his head. I'm sorry, Rin, back then I couldn't control the hatred in my heart. He turned to look at Kakashi. At this moment, Kakashi's eyes were filled with confusion, and he couldn't help but ask, Obito, in the future, did I really kill Rin with my own hands? Obito snorted coldly, then roared, Kakashi, you promised me you'd protect Rin, but you used the lightning release ninjutsu you just used to hit me, the technique you later called lightning blade, to pierce Rin's chest with your own hands. For a long time, I couldn't help but blame you for not protecting Lin, for standing by and watching Lin die. An immense resentment emanated from Obito, even distorting his facial features. Rin stood to the side, her heart heavy. It turned out that most of the despair and repression in Obito's heart were because of her. She wanted to step forward and say a few words to stop him, but she understood Obito. He was just taking this opportunity to vent his emotions. It wasn't good to keep these emotions bottled up, so it was better to let them out. In the end, she just watched quietly from the sidelines, without saying a word. Kakashi was shaken. Because he had never experienced it, he couldn't truly understand what it felt like to kill Rin with his own hands. But he could sense the sorrow and despair that Obito was feeling. Such emotions couldn't be faked. In addition, lightning blade. Kakashi raised his hand. The lightning ninjutsu he had just used was only a prototype. In his future vision, he would indeed gather lightning chakra in his hand to unleash its maximum destructive power. This seems to increase the possibility that Obito came from the future. Kakashi said, I'm sorry, Obito, I won't let the same thing happen again. Obito took a deep breath and continued to roar, Kakashi, you're all talk. Do you know why I'll hate you so much in the future? It's not just because you killed Rin with your own hands. After all, I know everything. Rin willingly ran into your hands and died. I resent you because you've become completely despondent, spending your days and nights in a daze, living like a walking corpse. Lin clearly believed in you, regarding you as the sun in the sky, which is why she made that decision. But your subsequent tui fei is a difficult word to translate directly, but it implies a state of being listless, dispirited, and lacking motivation. State makes you unworthy of being stained with Lin's blood. Kakashi's pupils contracted. He recalled his father's suicide some time ago, after which he had been in a dazed and confused state, exactly as Obito had described. Obito sneered, Kakashi, you've felt it yourself, haven't you? Every time you suffer a setback, you always look so lifeless. You've been like this since you were a child. How can someone like you deserve the title of genius? How can you be the sun in Rin's heart? Kakashi's face gradually paled, and sweat began to bead on his forehead. He then lowered his head and said with a self-deprecating laugh, Obito, you're right. I might just be a piece of trash. After venting his anger, Obito gradually calmed down and couldn't help but scoff. Kakashi, didn't you say before that completing missions is the most important thing in the ninja world? In the Rin incident, you prevented a potential disaster and fulfilled your duty as a ninja. You should be happy, so why are you so downcast? Kakashi was taken aback, then began to ponder. He didn't know what his future self would think, but if the price of completing the mission was to kill Rin with his own hands, then he couldn't help but shudder, and said with difficulty, No, I can't accept that happening. Obito sarcastically remarked, This is the hypocritical side of you all. Nagato is right. How can someone who hasn't experienced hardship understand the pain? You can always easily spout grand theories, but it's all just easy talk from someone who doesn't understand the suffering. Is that so? Kakashi murmured to himself, Father. I was wrong after all. You were the one who always upheld your beliefs. Kakashi turned to Obito and said earnestly, Obito, thank you. He suddenly understood that Obito's previous actions were partly an expression of his own emotions, but more importantly, he wanted to use this opportunity to enlighten him and make him realize that his thinking was wrong. Rin smiled again. Obito, the boy who needed her care, had now become someone she could rely on. But, Rin asked curiously, Obito, who is Nagato? Obito coughed. Nagato was one of the initial members of a peace-loving organization. He was born in a small country where the war between the 5 great nations broke out on their territory. The war destroyed his home, and compared to the relatively peaceful Konoha, he had a deeper understanding of suffering. Is that so? Lin said sympathetically, Nagato was a pitiful person too. Obito nodded. There are many pitiful people like this. In the future, I will travel to many places and meet many such people. At that time, I came to a profound understanding of one fact. The 5 great powers were all arrogant and aloof, possessing an arrogance they themselves were unaware of. They always think they are the center of the world, and that their actions represent justice. Yet, they often shout slogans of justice while bringing suffering to others. This isn't just true of people like Danzo. Even good people from the 5 great nations are the same. Lin nodded, but her brows furrowed more and more. She didn't care about the 5 great nations Obito mentioned. She was only worried about Obito. She could sense that something was wrong with Obito's thoughts. It's not that it's wrong, but rather that it's out of step with the overall mindset of Konoha. Obito, you said I would die in the future, and you witnessed it all. So, what about you? What happened to you afterwards? Obito lowered his head in shame. What was destined to happen would happen eventually. He couldn't escape it. He said slowly, Lin, in the future, I've done so many wrong things. Even if I were to be torn to pieces, I wouldn't deserve to die. I don't even dare to face you, but I will tell you everything little by little. Episode 15. Casting an illusion on the moon is impossible? No, becoming the second sage of 6 paths will suffice. Having already prepared herself mentally, Rin simply comforted him, saying, Obito, you said you did many wrong things, and my death must have affected you a lot, right? But none of that has happened yet. Let's work together, and we can definitely change the future. Kakashi, who was standing to the side, nodded. After Obito's encouragement, he had also cheered up. Obito, no matter how many mistakes you make in the future, you don't need to dwell on them, because you already know you were wrong, right? That way, it's not too late. Obito gave a wry smile. That's why Kakashi said, before experiencing suffering, don't easily express your opinions, because that's wrong. My future self, having witnessed Rin's death, was manipulated by the person who saved me and began to implement a plan called Infinite Tsukuyomi. Infinite Tsukuyomi? Rin and Kakashi asked in surprise. Obito activated his 3-tomo Sharingan, pointing to his eyes and saying, this is the bloodline limit of our Uchiha clan, the Sharingan. Kakashi should know a little about it. The Sharingan possesses extremely powerful genjutsu abilities, because it has been lost for a long time, unless one is a high-ranking member of the Uchiha clan. Most people believe that the limit of the Sharingan is 3-tomo. Kakashi was taken aback, and subconsciously said, isn't that right? But suddenly, Kakashi remembered Obito's eyes when he entered this space. Eyes that were different in shape from the 3-tomo shape. Could it be? Obito nodded. My initial eyes were a more advanced form than the 3-tomo Sharingan, known as the Mangekyou Sharingan. Every pair of Mangekyou Sharingan possesses its own unique Dojutsu, eye technique. For example, the Dojutsu contained within my eyes is called Kamui, which can be understood as a space-time ninjutsu. Obito paused for a moment, then continued. Some Sharingan users, however, fully utilized the Sharingan's genjutsu talent, awakening a genjutsu eye power called Tsukuyomi. It's an extremely powerful illusion, enough to pull a person into a mental world, allowing them to live a near-real life in that world. Rin and Kakashi listened to Obito's explanation and felt their eyes were opened. Does an illusion that allows one to truly live out their entire life really exist? Lin asked, somewhat incredulously. The principles of illusion taught in schools are at most to slightly disrupt a person's chakra flow, causing hallucinations, and these hallucinations are extremely easy to shake off. Obito nodded. It's possible. The Sharingan genjutsu of the Uchiha clan is different from ordinary genjutsu. Kakashi nodded. So, that infinite Tsukuyomi plan is related to the Sharingan's genjutsu? Dai Tudao. Not bad. Obito pointed to the sky. Although the moon and sun were not visible in the Kamui dimension, it was just a black and white void. The plan is to cast Tsukuyomi on the moon, using it as a medium to trap everyone in an illusion, forcing them to spend their entire lives within that illusion. What? Linka and Kashi exclaimed in surprise. Kakashi rolled his dead fish eyes. This is simply a dream. Even if the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan is incredibly powerful, it's impossible for it to be powerful enough to cast a genjutsu on the moon. Obito nodded. Indeed, the Uchiha clan alone couldn't do that. Casting Tsukuyomi on the moon requires a massive amount of chakra and various other conditions. But there are indeed people in the ninja world who can do something so outrageous. Lin asked curiously, who is it? Obito slowly uttered a name, the Sage of 6 Paths. Lin was instantly puzzled. The Sage of 6 Paths? I believe the Sage of 6 Paths could do that, but isn't that just a legend? Obito shook his head. The Sage of 6 Paths did indeed exist. His power surpassed the ninja's comprehension. He could create clouds and rain with a flick of his wrist, and creation and destruction were but a thought away. Calling him a god of the ninja world wouldn't be an exaggeration. It's just that he died a long time ago, so only legends remain. Kakashi frowned. Even if the Sage of 6 Paths really existed, Obito, didn't you say he was dead? I don't believe ninjas can do what the Sage of 6 Paths did. How can this infinite Tsukuyomi plan succeed? Obito glanced at Kakashi. It's simple, just become the second Sage of 6 Paths. PFF'd. Kakashi almost couldn't hold back, and even Rin covered her mouth and chuckled. Obito, you were completely fooled by that person. This was clearly impossible. Obito shook his head, his eyes calm. Rin, Kakashi, I'm not lying. Given the right conditions, a ninja can reach the same level as the Sage of Six Paths. I'm the most qualified to speak on this matter. Lin asked curiously, why? Because. Obito paused. In the future, I became the second Sage of Six Paths. What? Quote, Rin wanted to believe Obito, but it was too fantastical, giving her a sense of unreality. Therefore, she confirmed, Obito, what you said is true. Obito said earnestly, Rin, I won't lie to you. Rin believed her now. Obito, becoming the Sage of Six Paths must be very difficult, right? You said you needed to meet certain conditions. What are those conditions? Obito smiled bitterly. This is the root of all the mistakes I've made. As I just briefly explained, there are actually 9-tailed beasts living in this ninja world. They were originally one, called the 10 Tails, but were later separated into 9 by the Sage of Six Paths, named from 1 to 9 according to the number of their tails. Lin understood. So, Obito, the tailed beast that Kirigakure sealed inside me in the future was called the 3 Tails? Obito nodded. Yes, each tailed beast contains a massive amount of chakra, which is why they became weapons of war for the various ninja villages. The 10 Tails, in particular, possesses an unimaginable amount of chakra. To become the Sage of Six Paths, you need to gather the 9-tailed beasts together, making them the 10 Tails again. Then, by harnessing the power of the 10 Tails, you can reach the threshold of the 6 Paths. Kakashi frowned. Although I'm not entirely sure what tailed beasts are, anything that can be called a weapon of war must be extraordinary. Gathering 9 of them sounds like a crazy plan. Lin was also worried, and the relaxed state of mind she had just felt was gone. Obito said, this is even crazier than you can imagine, because most of the 9-tailed beasts are controlled by the 5 great ninja villages. They are one of the core forces of the villages and are strictly guarded. For example, Konoha has 9 tails. To gather the 9-tailed beasts means to seize their core power from the 5 great ninja villages. This is something no village can accept. Therefore, gathering the tailed beasts is a process of making enemies of the 5 great ninja villages. Making enemies of the 5 great ninja villages is making enemies of the entire world. For example, to obtain the 8 tails and the 9 tails, I had no choice but to declare war on all 5 great ninja villages simultaneously, thus starting the 4th Shinobi World War. Episode 16 I personally killed my master and mistress. The 4th Shinobi World War. Rin and Kakashi exclaimed in surprise. That's right, during the 4th Shinobi World War, at a 5-cage summit, I declared war in front of the other 4-cage. Obito shifted his posture, resting one hand on his lap, exuding a Yanglan yet domineering air. Just like now, this is how I'm sitting before them, declaring war on them. Rin and Kakashi could hardly believe their eyes. Was this the Obito they knew? Kakashi asked hesitantly, were you alone at the time? Obito nodded. Yes, strictly speaking, it's just me. Lin's big eyes lit up, and she clenched her little fists and held them to her chest. Obito, even though what you did might be wrong, it was so cool. Obito immediately felt embarrassed, blushing and scratching his head. Really? Lin nodded emphatically. Yes. Kakashi was also quite surprised. Obito, have you become this strong in the future? You can even ignore the cage from all the major villages gathered together? Obito thought for a moment. Actually, in terms of pure strength alone, he's not that strong. He then pointed to his eye. However, my Mangekyou Sharingan ability is rather special, as you've witnessed. In that intangible state, no ninjutsu or taijutsu can hit me. Although I only had one eye at the time, even the cage of several major villages were helpless against me. Kakashi, recalling his previous defeat, couldn't help but ask, that ability, can it be used indefinitely? I mean, anytime, anywhere. Obito nodded. That's right, it can be activated at any time. Kakashi immediately understood what this meant. I thought such a bizarre ability would require a long preparation time. If it could be used anytime, wouldn't that be too unfair? Obito shrugged. Even he himself admitted that if a way to counter his abilities couldn't be found, there was indeed no solution. At this moment, Rin asked, Obito, you just said you declared war on the other 4-cage, but isn't this the 5-cage summit? Does that mean 1 cage didn't come? Obito couldn't help but chuckle. They did come, but because he was caught red-handed betraying his ally, he ran away, so only the 4-cage remain at the meeting. The two were stunned. Rin couldn't help but exclaim, even the cage of a village would do something like this? I can't imagine the Hokage doing something like this. Kakashi nodded. The Hokage would never do that. Konoha can't afford to lose face like that. Obito's smile widened. You'll be disappointed. The one who ran away was none other than the Hokage. Huh? Quote, the two were completely dumbfounded. Obito slowly explained. Something happened in Konoha back then. During the 5-Cage Summit, the acting Hokage was the one who represented the village. That guy Shimura Danzo. I've said it before, he's just a rat in the gutter. The two breathed a sigh of relief, but then, as if remembering something, Kakashi angrily exclaimed, he even became Hokage. He's made Konoha lose face so badly. No, I'm increasingly determined to kill him. Obito tried to dissuade him, saying, he was killed not long after he escaped, and he only managed to get past an opening. The 5th Hokage at the time was Tsunade. The 5th Hokage, Rin couldn't help but exclaim, so there have been 2 Hokage in the future? Tsunade-sama has become Hokage. That's wonderful. Rin admires Tsunade the most, and she was overjoyed to hear that Tsunade had become Hokage. Obito's face showed no joy, but he lowered his head sadly. Rin noticed this and asked, Obito, what's wrong? Aren't you happy that Tsunade-sama became Hokage? Obito shook his head. No, it's just that the 4th Hokage. 4th generation? Obito chuckled self-deprecatingly. Rin, Kakashi, the 4th Hokage is Minato-sensei, which means he's our team leader, a Jonin. Our team leader is a Jonin? He'll actually become Hokage in the future. Looks like we'll have an excellent teacher in the future. Lin smiled, but then, as if remembering something, her smile faded. The Hokage is already the 5th Hokage, which means, our future teacher is dead too. What kind of person was he? Obito's face lit up with a hint of reminiscence. Minato-sensei was young and incredibly powerful. Compared to Kakashi, he was truly the sun in everyone's hearts. He mastered the Flying Thunder God technique, inherited from the 2nd Hokage, which is also a space-time ninjutsu. During the 3rd Shinobi World War, Minato-sensei earned a formidable reputation on the battlefield, much like Kakashi's father. He was known as the Yellow Flash of Konoha, and even forced villages like Iwagakure to issue a statement that anyone encountering the Yellow Flash could unconditionally abandon their current mission. Kakashi was almost numb. He clearly remembered that the first rule of the ninja code was that, no matter how difficult the conditions, the mission must not be abandoned. That's why he believed in the principle of prioritizing ninja missions. But Obito seemed to be deliberately provoking him, and the things he said were all slaps in the face. Kakashi narrowed his eyes, unable to resist imagining just how strong this ninja, the one who could change the ninja code, his future teacher, truly was. Rin sighed, really? Then he must have been a great Hokage. It's such a pity he died like that. Yes, it's such a pity. If he were still alive, many tragedies could have been avoided. Obito muttered to himself. Minato-sensei was very kind to us, and his wife, Kushina, was also very kind to us. Before that mission, I promised her that we would all come back alive, all intact. As Obito spoke, he couldn't continue, and tears streamed down his face. Rin and Kakashi also sensed the sadness. Rin asked, Obito, what happened to Kushina, the older sister you mentioned? Who will be our future teacher's wife? Obito nodded. Yes, something happened. Minato-sensei and Kushina died on the same day. Kushina had just given birth that day, and their son, Naruto Uzumaki, had just been born when they lost both their parents. Lin was heartbroken and clenched her small fists. This is so pitiful. Who killed our future master and mistress? It's unforgivable. Obito lowered his head, avoiding Rin's gaze. Yes, unforgivable. I'm the one who killed master and mistress. Quote, Rin and Kakashi had heard countless shocking news before, and thought they were used to it, but they still couldn't help but gasp in surprise this time. Rin frowned. Obito. Why? Kakashi was speechless, looking at Obito with a questioning gaze. Obito said, because Kushina is the current Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Just like Kirigakure sealed the 3 tails inside Rin, the 9 tails is sealed inside Kushina. In order to seize the 9 tails, I deliberately waited until Kushina was weak after giving birth, then infiltrated Konoha and released the 9 tails from her body, thus instigating the 9 tails rampage. Obito scoffed. Rin, you died trying to prevent the tailed beasts from wreaking havoc in the village, while I, this beast, personally infiltrated the village and caused this tragedy. That night, the 9 tails destroyed most of Konoha, and countless people lost their lives, including the 4th Hokage and his wife. Episode 17 I Want You to Slap Me Wake Up. This was so utterly despicable that even Lin couldn't help but be furious after hearing it. Obito, wasn't your childhood dream to become Hokage? I still don't understand why you would stop at nothing to achieve your goals. Attacking the village? Attacking your master and mistress? Obito's voice turned low. Rin, I'm sorry. Since you died, I've changed. I suddenly saw the true nature of this world. This world is hell. It's laughable, really. The person who seduced me was actually an idealist. His dream was to bring peace to the world, but he knew the world was beyond saving, which is why he wanted to launch the Infinite Tsukuyomi project, a massive illusion to immerse everyone in it. During that time, I witnessed far too many ugly things, including those I'm telling you about. Actually, Konoha isn't as bright as it seems on the surface, is it? Not to mention, in many places it's even worse than Konoha. So, I've approved of that person's plan. I want to activate the Infinite Tsukuyomi to create a world where everyone lives and is happy. Rin frowned, but Obito, no matter how good an illusion is, it's not real. Your teachers at school taught you that. How can you pin your hopes on a false illusion? Besides, you can do many wrong things, and I can forgive you, but attacking the village is something I simply cannot accept. Obito looked at Rin and suddenly couldn't help but say, Rin, I won't defend the mistakes I've made. I've said it before, I don't deserve to die. Hit me. For a moment, Rin was at a loss, her heart suddenly softening. I'm sorry, Obito, I was a little too emotional just now. I don't understand what you've suffered in the future, perhaps I'm not qualified to judge. Smack. Before Rin could finish speaking, Obito suddenly grabbed Rin's hand and slapped himself hard across the face. After slapping himself, Obito didn't let go, he just held Rin's hand against his face. Large tears streamed uncontrollably from Obito's eyes. He choked out, Rin, do you know, during the 4th Shinobi World War I started, on the battlefield, I met someone who looked remarkably like me when I was a child. He is Minato's son, the grown-up Naruto Uzumaki. In the end, he joined forces with the allied shinobi forces to stop my plan and became a great hero who saved the world. On the battlefield, I tried time and again to break him, but he rallied time and again, and in the end, he convinced me and made me realize my mistakes. Lin, he's really like me, so I know him very well. I know how to make him despair, but do you know why he always manages to pull through? Obito looked at Kakashi, because he's surrounded by people. When he's sad, upset, and desperate, there's always someone who steps forward to comfort him. Kakashi, you deserve some credit for that because you are his mentor. I still remember killing the person he wanted to protect right in front of him. At that moment, he could only watch helplessly, unable to do anything. This was the closest I'd ever come to success. He almost succumbed to temptation. But then, just like that, the girl beside him slapped him. Lin, do you know? I was so envious back then, so incredibly envious. I wished you were right beside me then, and you could have slapped me like that to wake me up. Wah! By the end, Obito was completely defeated and burst into tears. At that moment, Rin also felt Obito's loneliness, and tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. She moved closer to Obito again and hugged him tightly. She finally understood why Obito had such a strong need for her warmth when they first met. She gently patted Obito's back, and Obito, buried in her arms, kept crying. At this moment, Obito shed all his pretense and was so real. It turns out, the little boy she thought had changed and needed her care was still there. Obito hadn't changed at all. After crying for a long time, Obito finally stopped crying and stayed in Rin's arms, continuing to speak. In fact, when I went to Konoha to unleash the Nine Tails attack, I fought with Minato-sensei. At that time, I so wished he would recognize me and pull me back. Unfortunately, I wore a mask back then, hiding everything about myself. Even Minato-sensei didn't know that the person behind the mask was me. And so, step by step, I pushed myself completely against the entire ninja world. Later, during the 4th Shinobi World War, I successfully gathered all 9-tailed beasts and became the second sage of 6 paths. But behind me, there was no one left. Lin's face was full of heartache, and she couldn't help but say, Obito, you must have been very lonely back then, right? Obito nodded, but then smiled. Looking at everyone united, I suddenly regretted losing to Naruto. Later, I died too, entering the underworld. On the road to the underworld, I realized that I was never truly alone. Kakashi was stunned. From Obito's self-narration, he had almost completely pieced together the beastly things Obito would do in the future. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he would be abandoned by everyone. Would anyone still stand by Obito's side after this? Rin suddenly understood something and smiled. Obito, is that me? If there really is a Yomi, the underworld, even if I die, I will still be worried and will keep watching over you. Obito nodded. Yes, Rin, you waited for me at the crossroads of the underworld for a long time, and in the end, it was you who held my hand and we fell into slumber together. Obito couldn't help but joke. Back then, the allied shinobi forces wanted to pull the 10 tails out of my body. Tens of thousands of people, including the strongest group in the entire shinobi world and the Kage from various villages, engaged in an epic tug of war with me. But even then, I wouldn't necessarily lose. I lost to my initial aspirations. If I had known Rin was behind me, perhaps I would have won. Then, the infinite Tsukuyomi plan would have been activated, and the world would have been destroyed because of me. Rin chuckled. As a little girl, she couldn't help but imagine the scene Obito had described. To fight the whole world single-handedly, that's insane, that's awesome and domineering. Rin felt a little scared, but mostly she was filled with anticipation. Kakashi rolled his eyes. Rin, if what Obito said is true, then he'll be a great demon who starts an unprecedented war and kills countless people. That's not something to be admired. Rin squinted and nodded. I know, Kakashi, but nothing happened, right? This time, I absolutely cannot die. If Obito really becomes like that in the future, I will definitely bring him back. And, Rin looked thoughtful. Even after witnessing Obito's many mistakes, my future self still didn't give up on him. Perhaps, Obito's place in my heart is more important than I realize. Episode 18 Konoha cannot represent the ninja world. Rin unconsciously recalled the moments she shared with Obito. She always thought Obito was a carefree boy, always so absent-minded, often late because he was helping old ladies, and almost missed even entering the ninja academy. That's why she couldn't help but worry. However, she belatedly realized that her concern for Obito had long exceeded the norm. Perhaps from the very beginning, she was touched by this sunny, cheerful, yet clumsy boy. In the future, Obito saw her as his salvation, but didn't she also see Obito as her salvation? Suddenly, Rin felt an impulse and couldn't help but speak up. Obito, from now on, whatever happens, don't be alone. I'll face it with you. Obito nodded and smiled. Rin, I'm telling you everything. I never intended to face everything alone. Then, he looked at Kakashi. Kakashi, you heard it too. My future self is hopeless. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I don't even want it, because I don't deserve it. But I desperately want to change some things, to prevent this tragedy from happening again. Kakashi pondered for a moment and then asked, So, Obito, what do you plan to do? Obito glanced around and slowly said, This Kamui space is a true reflection of my soul. It is only black and white, and it is fragmented. Compared to this space, the entire ninja world isn't much better off. On the surface, there may be light, but beneath lies a deeper darkness. Many people are trying to achieve peace in their own ways. But the seed of peace is so difficult to take root and sprout in the land of the ninja world that many people, along the way, end up going to extremes. For example, my future self and also the person who led me astray. So, since I've returned to the past, I might as well bear the burden of it all. I know information about the future, possess considerable strength, and I am the most likely person to bring peace to the ninja world. Peace? Rin murmured to herself, feeling that this was a path destined to be difficult. But she remained firm. Obito, I support all your decisions, but if one day I find you've gone down the wrong path, I will pull you back. For example, peace created using genjutsu has no meaning in reality. Obito shook his head and said softly, Rin, you're actually wrong. Even now, I haven't completely denied the value of infinite Tsukuyomi. None of you have experienced true despair, but in this world, there are many people who have experienced true despair. They all struggle to live, but sometimes living is more painful than dying. For them, the truth or falsehood of the world is no longer important. What they yearn for is a place where their souls can find peace, a warm haven. Rin frowned, unsure of what to say for a moment. Kakashi snorted loudly. This is escaping reality, cowardly behavior. Obito, didn't you accuse me of being a coward in the future? But what you've done is turning more people into cowards, isn't it? So what right do you have to criticize me? Obito sighed and sneered. Kakashi, you're different from those commoners. You're a genius. You became a genin at 5 and a jonin at 12. You have power, but they don't. They're just ordinary people, forced to go with the flow. You're a coward because it's the result of your choice. They're cowards because they had no choice. Your father was killed by Danzo, and you want revenge. You have the chance to do so, but what about them? What can they do if their relatives are oppressed by those in high positions of power? They were forced to live numbly, in a daze, because the consequence of resistance, the consequence of refusing to accept reality, was that the whole family would perish together. So, it's precisely because you have the power to become stronger, yet you willingly gave up an opportunity that so many people dream of, that I'm angry at you. Kakashi had never imagined such an angle. He was drenched in cold sweat, utterly speechless. This, maybe we can save. Obito sneered. The ninja world is so vast, how many can you save? You may have power, but you can't change the present, you can only save yourself. You have no right to judge others if you haven't experienced their suffering. Compared to living in hell, what's shameful about running away? Kakashi was completely speechless, his face hardening. So Obito, you want to do it again? If so, for the sake of the ninja world, I will have no choice but to become your enemy. Obito scoffed. Look at you, so impatient again. This is what I call the arrogance of the 5 great shinobi villages. The people living in the 5 great ninja villages oppose this plan because they can imagine a better future. But have you ever thought about what the ordinary people in those small countries think? You haven't, have you? Since you haven't, they are also part of the ninja world. What gives you the right to represent them? Kakashi, you can only represent the interests of Konoha. Protecting the village isn't wrong in itself, but your actions aren't as noble as you seem. Don't keep talking about the ninja world. Konoha doesn't represent the entire ninja world. That's why I think you guys are sometimes hypocritical. Danzo would have been better off just telling the truth, saying, everything I do is for Konoha's sake. Kakashi was once again rendered speechless by the rebuttal. Compared to Obito, who had caused countless troubles in his previous life and had honed his eloquence considerably, Kakashi's language skills were clearly not as rich. He had no choice but to turn to Rin for help. Rin wasn't too worried. She just looked at Obito and smiled. Obito, although you said you didn't completely deny the significance of the infinite Tsukuyomi, I think you probably don't want to go through that again, right? Obito nodded. The infinite Tsukuyomi is actually just a conspiracy by a schemer who has existed for a long time. This plan will kill everyone and turn the ninja world into a completely desolate place. This is not the result I want. Rin and Kakashi were taken aback. They had thought Obito's future antics were already big enough, but they hadn't expected there to be another powerful figure involved. Kakashi couldn't help but ask, Obito, you've been very open with us, yet you refused to tell us who the people who led you down this path and the newly emerged schemers are. Is it because you have some reservations? Obito nodded. For your safety, let's wait until you've grown a bit more before I tell you. The entire ninja world is being monitored by White Zetsu. If White Zetsu discovers anything, it could cause chaos. Seeing that Obito was unwilling to answer, Kakashi didn't press the matter further. Instead, he changed the subject. So, Obito, how do you intend to bring peace to the ninja world? Episode 19 You Are My World. Obito thought for a moment. To be honest, I haven't decided yet. I can only take it one step at a time. Kakashi frowned. You've been through a lot in the future. You must have some ideas of your own, right? Obito smiled wryly. Because I've been through so much, I don't know where to begin. Every plan has its flaws. Let me give you an example. Obito held up one finger. Actually, the future I experienced might have already achieved peace after the 4th Shinobi World War. Rin and Kakashi were taken aback. Obito continued, because at that time, my existence had already threatened the entire ninja world, so the nations had no choice but to put aside their hatred and unite against me. The Ninja Alliance, led by the 5 great nations and supplemented by others, even standardized their headbands, which all bore the character, ninja. Past ninja wars were essentially battles between several major powers. Once someone died, the hatred was easily passed on to the next generation. But during the 4th Shinobi World War, the future leaders of the 5 great nations were still young and hadn't yet been tainted by hatred. Even though people died in the process, all the hatred was placed on my shoulders. In fact, they became comrades in arms in the shared battle, forging a bond that transcended life and death. It's foreseeable that as the war ends and the older generation hands over power to the next, with those young people becoming village leaders and even film stars, it will be very difficult for war to break out again. When you're traveling abroad, you'll have friends in other countries, and you'll run into them all the time, so it's not convenient to fight. Besides, even if there are dissenting voices, Konoha is fortunate to have produced 2 more super strong individuals who can suppress everything. Therefore, the ninja world should be able to achieve peace for a period of time. Both were overjoyed upon hearing this. From Obito's description, they had thought the future was bleak and hopeless, but the ending was unexpectedly beautiful. Of course, Obito slightly concealed information about Kagaya Otsutsuki in this conversation. The final key reason why the ninja world was able to achieve peace was that Naruto and Sasuke, together with Sakura and Kakashi, sealed away Kagaya Otsutsuki. Before this, the infinite Tsukuyomi had already been activated, and everyone would have been turned into White Zetsu and died. Naruto and Sasuke's actions truly saved their lives. With the life-saving grace first and their immense strength second, how could the ninja world not be at peace? Lin smiled. So, Obito, in a sense, your actions have truly achieved peace? Obito nodded. Yes, so this is a good idea. I can repeat some things from my past life, create a cataclysmic disaster, force everyone to unite, and I will bear the burden of hatred alone, ending it with me. In this way, the ninja world can achieve a period of peace. Kakashi frowned. No, this is too dangerous, and Obito, if you do this, you'll once again be on the opposite side of everyone, which is not the outcome I want to see. Rin nodded. Obito, I don't want to sacrifice you for peace either. Obito chuckled self-deprecatingly. Sacrificing myself to save the world isn't so bad. If conditions allowed, I would do it, but you've also seen the drawbacks, haven't you? To get the 5 great powers to put aside their hatred and unite, it won't be enough to just have small skirmishes, they need to fully understand the pain. But this will kill many people, and even if many people die, the outcome of the previous life was brought about by countless coincidences. One wrong move, and even if people die, the hatred remains, and all the efforts are in vain. Kakashi nodded. So Obito, perhaps we could try a gentler approach, where people can understand each other. Obito shook his head, it's useless. Everything I experienced in my past life shows that the prerequisite for people to try to understand each other is that you have to beat them down first. Obito raised his fist. In this world, might makes right. This is a truth I've come to understand. The reason Konoha was able to be built back then, besides its philosophy of peace, was primarily because the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, possessed the strength of a god of shinobi. No one dared disobey his ideas. The two were taken aback. Lin said somewhat cautiously, but the third Hokage was stronger than the first Hokage and was known as the strongest Hokage. Yet he still didn't manage to make other countries listen to him with his fists, did he? The second shinobi world war has begun. Our Konoha is under siege. Fortunately, we have Tsukumo Senpai and the Sannin, otherwise. Obito couldn't help but burst into laughter. If Hiruzen Sarutobi had the strength of the first Hokage, not only would the second shinobi world war not have happened, but Konoha could even have unified the shinobi world. That old guy is just patting himself on the back. Lin asked suspiciously, the first generation, was he really that strong? Stronger than the third generation? Lin wasn't very convinced. Obito chuckled and explained, he's incredibly strong. The first Hokage was only a step away from the state of the Sage of Six Paths I mentioned before. The third Hokage was like a child compared to him. He couldn't even get him to take things seriously. However, in a sense, the third Hokage was indeed the strongest Hokage, because the first and second Hokage weren't skilled in fire release techniques, ha ha ha. This was one of the few times Obito smiled happily during the conversation. Rin should have been happy for him. At this moment, she only exchanged an awkward glance with Kakashi. After all, the Hokage was the symbol of their Konoha village, and it was rather strange to be talked about like this. Obito laughed for a while before gradually calming down and continuing. In short, absolute force may not bring absolute peace, but without force, you don't even have the right to command respect. Regardless of how peace is achieved in the future, what we can do now is strive to improve ourselves. Both of them agreed on this point. Kakashi hadn't let go of his hatred. To fight against the Hokage's support, he had to become stronger. Rin also didn't want her future death to happen. Seeing this, Obito continued, although I don't approve of Kakashi's gentle approach, it's not impossible to try if you want to. Rin, Kakashi, you two are the most suitable for this kind of thing. Obito pondered for a moment and said, first, Kakashi, you need to ensure your health. Health is the foundation of everything. Otherwise, I might encounter a powerful but sickly individual in the future who collapses before even achieving his goals. That won't do. Then, Obito looked at Rin. Rin, your dream was to become a female ninja like Tsunade, and you did indeed become an excellent medical ninja. Now, you can still walk that path. You can study more about medical ninjutsu to build a solid foundation. Leave the rest to me. I'll find a way to improve your strength, and maybe even persuade Lady Tsunade to take you on as her apprentice. Rin trembled, a sudden pang of inferiority gripping her. She had become the one most in need of care. She didn't want to depend on Obito for everything, but Obito sensed Rin's thoughts, took her hand, and held it tightly. Rin, the reason I can become stronger in the future is because I am a descendant of the Uchiha clan, a bloodline not everyone possesses. People are born unfair to each other. You must learn to face your weaknesses. If you lack bloodline, find ways to make up for it. I already have an idea, and you can try it when you're a little older. Besides, Lin, after everything we've been through, it's no longer a matter of one depending on the other. You should be able to sense that, right? Actually, I depend on you more than you depend on me. I once told you that saving me was like saving the whole world. The reverse is also true. Saving you is like saving the whole world, because you are my world. Did they establish a relationship in episode 20? Rin was so moved that she couldn't hold back her tears. She looked at Obito, laughing and crying at the same time, and said, then, Obito, I won't say thank you. Everything is in your hands. Obito gently wiped away Rin's tears and smiled. You used to always wipe my tears. Now I can finally wipe yours for once. Rin cried even louder, and everything seemed to turn around. She threw herself into Obito's arms, and Obito held her tightly, letting her tears of emotion soak her clothes. Kakashi stood to the side, his dead fish eyes slightly narrowed, clearly enjoying the scene. He was actually a staunch supporter of Rin, and seeing the significant improvement in their relationship, he couldn't help but feel gratified. After a brief moment of tenderness, Obito and Rin parted ways. Obito explained, many things will happen in the future. It's already late, but I'll tell you all about them later when there's more time. Currently, the Third Shinobi World War is imminent. Yes, although the Second Shinobi World War ended not long ago, the Third Shinobi World War is about to begin. In just a few short years, the ninja world has been engulfed in constant warfare, with countless lives lost. It is precisely because of this that I desire to achieve peace. I'm still too young to do anything right now. War is cruel, but from another perspective, it's also an opportunity for me to leave the village openly and do something. So let's enjoy these last few years of peace before the war. The future will inevitably bring busyness. Obito awakened his Mangekyou Sharingan once more. That concludes our conversation for today. Now I'll send you out first. Of course, this time I won't open the space-time portal, but rather, Obito placed his hands on the two of them, the space around them distorted, and the three of them vanished from their spot. In the real world, at Hataki's house, the three figures returned to their original positions. Lin looked around curiously and couldn't help but ask, Obito, this is really a useful ability. Obito smiled. In my past life, it was this ability that allowed me to travel throughout the ninja world. He turned to look at Kakashi, then at the photograph of Tsukumo Hatake displayed in the center of the Hatake residence. Kakashi, how's it going? Have you made peace with your inner self yet? Kakashi nodded, respectfully approached White Fang, and bowed. Father, I will personally go and see the scenery ahead, and also see if the higher-ups of Konoha are as incompetent as Obito described. Obito and Rin watched quietly from the side. Obito actually knew how to revive, not a pseudo-resurrection like the impure world reincarnation, but a genuine resurrection. However, casting the samsara technique requires the caster to sacrifice their life, which can only be saved by the power of the 6 paths of Yang. This price is too high. Originally, after learning that the Rinnegan possessed the ability to revive, he had considered whether it was possible to implant the Rinnegan into a death row inmate and control him to unleash the Rinne Tensei. But after he transplanted Ban's left eye onto himself, he realized it was nothing but wishful thinking. Even with Hashirama's cells, he almost couldn't withstand the Rinnegan's erosion. Ordinary ninjas, even those at the cage level, would probably be instantly drained into dried corpses. Therefore, to unleash the Rinne rebirth technique, at least one ninja like Nagato must be sacrificed, but there are very few people like Nagato in the entire ninja world. It's best not to bring up something as far-fetched as resurrection at this point. Kakashi, Rin and I are heading out now. Want to grab some late-night snacks? Obito extended the invitation. Kakashi shook his head. I've received too much information today, I need to take a break. Obito nodded and looked at Rin. Rin, shall we go? Rin smiled, took Obito's hand, and said to Kakashi, Kakashi, we'll come visit again when we have time. The two left the Hatake residence hand in hand. By this time, it was completely dark. The village of Konoha was illuminated by thousands of lights, creating a scene of prosperity. The two did not part ways immediately, but instead went to a river in Konoha and took a leisurely stroll. A gentle night breeze blew, and for a moment, no one spoke. The atmosphere was somewhat silent. In the end, it was Lin who spoke first. Obito, you like me a lot, don't you? Obito was a little embarrassed by Rin's question, but he still nodded. In my past life, I never had a chance to confess my feelings to you, and the flowers I planned to give you never came. Lin looked into the distance. Really? That's a real shame. After hesitating for a moment, Rin said, Obito, actually, before this, I thought I liked Kakashi. Obito wasn't surprised. I knew. That's why I asked him to protect you when I thought I was going to die. Rin looked nostalgic. Obito, my dream since childhood has been to become a strong person like Tsunade, but I know very well that I'm just an ordinary girl, and I can't do anything like that. Kakashi's appearance, just as you said, is like the sun in the sky. I can't help but be drawn to him, wanting to get closer. But now I suddenly realize that my feelings for Kakashi were more of admiration. He fulfilled my fantasies about strong people, but in reality, he never truly entered my life. His brilliance simply made me overlook it. More often than not, the person I wanted to be with, the person I wanted to care about, was you. Obito took a deep breath and smiled. Rin, after meeting you at the crossroads of the underworld, I understood everything. Rin, I really like you. If possible, I want to walk with you forever. Rin nodded. Obito, I'm not sure if this is love, but I'm sure you're the most special person in my life. I will always be watching you, forever. The two didn't speak again, but simply held hands and walked a long way until they finally parted ways. Obito returned home to the Uchiha clan compound. He turned on the light, walked to his grandmother's portrait, and said with a smile, "Grandma, perhaps you really will have the chance to hold your grandson someday. But you were perfectly healthy when you said those words. How could you have passed away so soon? If it weren't for Rin and Kakashi, I don't know who else in this world would care about me. In my past life, I made too many mistakes. In this life, I will make amends little by little. Rest in peace in the afterlife. Your grandson, Obito, has grown up." Obito spoke quietly with his grandmother for a few words, wiped away his tears, went into his bedroom, lay down on the unfamiliar yet familiar bed, and drifted off to sleep. 4 years later, Ninja Academy, teaching building. 9-year-old Obito faced the 3 examiners in front of him and swiftly released a near-perfect clone. He stood still, quietly waiting for the result. Pass. 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 All 3 examiners smiled and nodded. Actually, they weren't surprised. As the top student in this year's elite class who had risen from the bottom of the class, it would be strange if Uchiha Obito didn't graduate. Soon, the Chunin teacher brought over a headband and put it on Obito. "Obito, congratulations on becoming a full-fledged ninja. Starting tomorrow, you will be in a team with 2 other people. Your instructor, a Jonin, requires you to assemble at Training Ground 42 after the graduation ceremony tomorrow morning. Please be on time." The Chunin teacher handed Obito a document as he spoke. Obito pulled it open and took a look. It says so. Class 7. Instructor, Jonin, Minato Namikaze. Team members, Rin Nohara, Kakashi Hitaki, Obito Uchiha. Obito's eyes were deep and profound. Nothing has changed. It's still the same as in the previous life. The gears of fate slowly turned, and Obito couldn't help but ask himself a question. "Minato-sensei, how am I supposed to face you now?"